Welcome to Chronic Curiosity, where we have real conversations with real people, from everything to anything, in attempts to facilitate dialogue with our fellow humans, and hopefully your curiosity as well as ours. If you can withstand the show, we ask, most importantly, that you tell your friends and family, but also you can pick up some merch or just donate to the show at chronic-curiosity.com. Please feel free to reach out to us on the website or the socials, which can also be found on the website, chronic-curiosity.com. And here we go. And there's supposedly a third of the things that are written down that he had are missing.
Yeah.
It's and Trump, I think Trump's uncle worked for Bush Sr.
Okay.
Or something like that. Or that was right. It was or right before Bush was the director of the CIA and all these things. It's man.
So you've heard the rumor time travel and stuff like that with Trump at all, or?
I don't know if I have heard that one. I don't think I've heard it.
I think it's kind of in the same storyline a little bit with Tesla, and Trump's been time traveling, sent back to save us all.
I don't know. Oh, jeez. Oh, we're really going.
Wasn't that book with the names that were similar and
Oh yeah, I did hear
Trump
about
thing?
that one. Yeah, Baron Trump. Yeah, that is an odd. It's an odd similarity. I don't remember exactly all the details.
Yeah.
It was
I didn't follow too closely, so I don't.
There's enough shit I know that our government and things are doing that it's so fucked up that I don't feel like we need to create
No.
any more craziness.
Yeah.
Maybe even if it's true, maybe if the Nazis are in Antarctica and they're in an alliance with the aliens, maybe. But time traveling Trump, I don't know. Why not?
Could happen.
We have enough problems as it is. Whether it's true or not, I don't need to go that far down the hole.
Right.
I guess. Are we all set up and everything's good? Or you want to just
Cool.
get rolling? I know I got a basketball game this evening, but we should have plenty of time. But wanted to have plenty of time.
Yeah.
Because we were planning this for a while.
Months.
But glad to have you back, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Life's been busy for you. Been doing lots of things, it seems like. So that's always fun.
Yeah, I would say we had that little cold spout I think it was, a month and a half ago when it was actually 9 degrees and we felt like we had a winter. And I was doing a lot of ice baths before that and everything froze over because I do mine outside and have a little tub and got to break into it when it's 32 degrees or 28 degrees. And it's nice to get in after work and feel like it just decompresses everything. And you're stressed out through work and you get home and you jump in that. You don't want to do it. And then you get out, you're just oh, I'm good again. So kind of refreshes you. So I pretty much quit that for a while, but then I seen you guys with the Ruck Club, and then you do that little polar plunge, or you jump into the pond, and I'm just man, maybe I should do that. Maybe I could get into something like that a little bit. So
yeah, we intended to jump in the lake down at Pleasant Hill, but we got down there. It was right after it was super cold, and there was 6 inches of ice. So we're we can't even break through this. So we're I guess we're gonna have to just lay down in the river.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's what we did. I do the cold.
That's cool.
We've talked about that with a handful of people recently, that the cold, it's seems like woo woo, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you do it, you try it, and it's you can see the results.
Yeah.
You can feel them. I take a cold shower, I usually get up, go to the gym, and take a cold shower right and I get home every morning. And it's woo, let's go.
Does it just wake you up, or do you actually feel less inflammation, or what benefits do you guys feel you immediately get, and then kind of downstream, what benefits do you feel like you get?
I would say all the above. I think it wakes you up, and it depends how long you want to stay in it too. I'm usually 3 minutes and I'm out. There's people that say you need to be in it 20 minutes and really kind of get the benefits from it, but I don't believe that.
Sounds dangerous.
I think you just need to shock your system enough to where it wakes you up, and then it does have a de-inflammation effect to it, to where you get out and I just feel like my body feels zero pain. I just feel good. I feel like I could run a mile or something just right, then and that. So I've been doing it for probably 5-6 years. And I don't know if that was before mainstream or something, just like jumping in the bathtub and doing it before Amazon started selling these little inflatable
Right.
tubs. So it was just a lot easier just to jump in the bathtub. But now that they make these for like 60, $70, it's like, yeah, I could buy one of those every couple of years if they like break or something. It doesn't matter. But yeah, I think I was watching the video that Cass put on there, and it looked like you might have stayed in there the longest, a little bit. You were the last out.
Well,
So
I
I was
just did
like,
I was like, you know what? If we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it. So
yeah,
I was like, and there were people that were just kind of like trying to figure out how
Did you
to.
consciously do that?
No, well, what I did is I went down. I was like, I'm not just gonna sit in this. Like, if I'm gonna get in a creek instead of
yeah,
actually getting in like a lake for a cold
I
plunge,
must
like
break you.
I was like, I'm actually gonna do it.
yeah,
You know, so I was like, well, I was like, I found a spot that was flat enough and deep enough that I could like submerge myself in it. So I
right,
just did like a push up into the water, and I was like, I'm gonna do it if I'm gonna do it.
yeah,
But I didn't really think about how long I'd be there. It really wasn't that cold though either. I don't know if it's just, I think it's partly adrenaline and stuff like that.
yeah,
But last year we went in the lake, and that seemed a lot colder. Because I like dove in it. I'm a strong swimmer. I used to competitively swim when I was younger. So I just dove in, and then realized very quickly you can't touch bottom
hmm,
because the shore is really steep. And I kind of turned around. And I was like, oh, like this is cold, and I can't touch. Like this is serious because we had people with us that couldn't swim. So I was like, oh, I'm like, this could be bad. Now it's like, all right, is everyone making it out? Because it was really cold. But it does feel. I don't know if I can necessarily pinpoint all the things I feel from the cold. I want to get a cold plunge. I don't have one. But I'm like debating about those ones you see, like you said, like these little pop up things. Like,
yeah,
or what do I do in the summer though? Because it's like, I'm gonna like have to buy bags of ice to like get it cold. So I'm like, I haven't decided what I want to do, but I want to get one because a cold shower, like it's nice, but it's not cold, like 30-degree water. I
well,
like my pool, like when I turn it off and it gets down like in the 50s and in the 40s, like once you start breaking into like the 50s and 40s, you realize, oh, this water's cold now. That's much nicer.
yeah, it's a lot different when you go from 50 degrees to 33 degrees or so. But you guys have well water, I'm assuming here,
It's
so
pretty cold in the winter.
it's probably 52 degrees in the summer even, or 54, something like that.
Yeah.
So you could do that. That's what I usually do. It's like every day or every other day I have to dump it. And so,
Yeah.
in the summertime, especially if it's 80 degrees, I'm dumping it every day, and it's probably 30 gallons or something that you're going through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't mind it, but as long as it has the health benefits that's backing it up, I don't care if I'm wasting that water. But yeah, I mean, 54, 56 degrees is still enough to shock your system and wake you up and make you feel good. And like you said, it probably wasn't feeling that cold because you guys were out there probably sweating, running
Yeah.
around,
It
doing the
helps.
ruck. Yeah. If I just don't move and then go get in it, it's terrible. It's the worst thing ever. You get out, you're kind of like shivering afterwards. But if I run the driveway and I get kind of oxygen going through the blood a little bit more and then come down and do it, it's great. It's perfect. I
Yeah.
get out, I feel good. It's definitely not as bad. So I recommend maybe running around, working out, doing something before you get in all the time. So
What temperature do you rock in the water?
so it's just natural in the wintertime, if it's just 30
Ambient, yeah.
degrees out, maybe it's 33 degrees.
Does anyone ever keep a thermometer to see if like their body temp drops below 95 degrees?
I haven't. No,
I was,
that's
I was
interesting
just
though.
curious about like if anybody's getting hypothermia from.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never tried that. I have like a little food thermometer I take out with me just to test the water,
Yeah,
and it's usually
put it
like,
under your tongue.
yeah, yeah,
At the same time.
that's funny. We could try that. I I think there's probably been studies that probably not. I mean, you got Iceman with Wim Hof and stuff,
Yeah.
being in the
Yeah.
water for hours, and then that's crazy to me. I don't think I would ever do that.
There's a lot of
But
control that I don't know what he does, some kind of voodoo, but I think he's supposedly been part of an experiment where he proved that he could control uh parts of his body temperature,
right,
where he could like make his hand like go colder and whatnot.
yeah.
Like, I don't know how you do that, but that's pretty wild.
Oh,
So
he's done all these studies, like the study that basically they injected it with some kind of pathogen, and then he had to go to the hospital, and they
oh
kept an eye
yeah.
on him, and I forget what pathogen that might have been, or some kind of virus, and he beat it within like a day. And the next day, he's like, "I'm feeling good," and he claims with all his breathing techniques and his control over his body,
Probably
Kills it.
HIV, and him and Magic Johnson were hanging out after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he's a character, but it's like, hey, maybe you're some kind of wizard. I don't know.
Yeah, touche. I mean, he doesn't look like he has great physique when you look at him. He's kind of feels like he's got a little pouch up there. I know he's getting older and stuff, but
he didn't say he works out a lot. He's just
right.
They control his body, right?
Maybe that's the key. You got to have a little fat on you if you're going into that cold water.
Don't swimmers do that sometimes? Like they'll have like a slight amount more of body fat, and they swim a bunch, and it helps regulate temperature.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
I remember reading something about that.
Well, I know it's hard to to be a swimmer and to hold body fat, because that's an incredible, like when you're looking at professional swimmers, like, they all look like bean poles, because that's hard to, well, one, obviously it makes it easier because you're smaller in the water, and muscle doesn't float very well.
Right.
But that's burning a lot of calories.
Yeah.
Oh, they're flying through the calories.
Tony, what is your thought on the cold plunge and like hormones? I've recently seen a couple of people come out and say that while cold plunging feels good, for women, it might not be nearly as beneficial as what it could potentially be for men, because women are supposed to have a little bit higher of a temperature. Plus, a lot of them are already eating lower calories than what they should. So then they add the shock to their system. And while it feels good, it's probably not as beneficial as what one thinks it is compared to like a male body.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't done enough research in that. It would be interesting to get some cold plunges at Craig's and then pull some serial labs, and we could probably find out. I mean, it would be a limited sample size, but I could guarantee we could get volunteers. So
that'd be really neat.
Yeah.
I'm just
in the sauna too.
Yeah. Heat shock protein. No, I'm just playing.
I love the sauna. I need one of them too, but sorry.
Well, that's what she was talking about. How she's like, I'm not saying that, cold plunging in general for women is bad, but like, are you doing something active beforehand? Are you, is your body temperature increased before you get in? Like when we did the ruck, or, are we doing it consistently? Are we making sure we're eating enough calories? Like, are we minimizing our stress? Because it does put a lot of stress on your body.
Yeah.
So it will spike the cortisol levels, but are we like being smart about it? Or like, are we just getting in an ice bath after a hard workout to decrease the inflammation? I mean, they've been doing that for years, right? Like athletes have been doing that for a long time. So it's just interesting because she's like, there really aren't a lot of studies that prove if it is actually beneficial for women compared to what there is data points for men.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think also too, that's partially, well, I'm sure there's a science behind it, but I think when some of this stuff at the end of the day, it really comes down to an anecdotal experience, right? For everybody. I mean, obviously when there's scientific things that prove like, hey, drinking bleach is bad for you. I think that's pretty established. But when you're talking about like these, because some people, like the carnivore diet or keto or this or that or whatever, like I've always had a belief there's a little bit of genetics that go into play where some things, like you said, aren't always necessarily going to be as beneficial for person A as they are for person B. And there's a little bit of choose your own path, when it comes down to some of those things too. It's like most of the time, most people I've seen the vast majority of people are so unaware of even their remote health markers, and healthiness in general is kind of confusing to them because, they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, hey, watch your cholesterol. Like she said it all the time before, like she hears doctors say these things. And it's like, what the fuck's that even mean?
Yeah.
Like when you watch it do what? Like how's that even like?
Stop eating eggs. Is that what we do?
No, please don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, going back to something you were saying, can't you take a very minute amount of bleach to kill? No, I'm serious. To literally for like preppers, survivalists, to kill organisms, and you have to know exactly what you're doing, and you can drink the water.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
it's just chlorinating the water, right?
Yeah, that's basically what you're doing is chlorinating the water. Because you can do that. There's people that use bleach in their pools.
Yeah.
But you have to it has to be, I can't remember if it's for a pH thing or whatever it is, but it has to counteract something so that chemical process occurs so it's safe to drink then in the right quantities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
And the cholesterol thing though, that's all the time. So patients are always like, "Oh, what does this LDL or HDL mean?" And I'm like, guys, usually someone's not pulling like APOB or LP little a. They're not doing like a LDLP or a particle test. They're not doing a calcium test. And I'm like, guys, this is all just very limited. Like if cardiology was sitting in front of you, they would say, get your LDL as low as possible. Yeah, there's studies that show that, but there's obviously many more risk factors, diet, activity, things like that that go into that. So, and they're motivated to probably prescribe statins. So, but yeah, I'm always talking to patients about their diet, their activities, their genetics, and then prior to statins or ezetimibe or PCSK9 inhibitors, things like that, supplements, the red yeast rice, the krill oil, the berberine, the bergamot citrus, the nattokinase, things like that. So I think they just hear that in med school, and it's like, if they're not in cardiology, it's like they go crazy if they see like an elevated LDL. So
Well, same across the board where they're like, oh, you know what? Your A1C is maybe slightly elevated. You should watch your carbs. But what does that mean? Like,
yeah,
how many carbs should I be eating? Like,
True.
they're not giving these
what
patients this
kind of
information.
carbs?
Yeah, what and what kind of carbs? Like,
Yeah.
It kind of goes
Like,
along the same. You
what?
see a lot of study, like a lot of headlines where it's I've seen them a lot recently where they're, I don't know if they're intentionally vague, right? But it's study shows eating meat can increase your risk of this. Well, okay, what kind of meat were they eating?
Mhm.
Was it a McDonald's hamburger
Right.
on a McDonald's bun with some fries and a milkshake along with it?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't matter. It's this person that only ate vegetables had a lower possibility
They're
of heart
lumping it all
disease or
into
whatever. They're just all they're doing is just making these broad statements
Mhm.
about these things and never like breaking it down and going, well, what are the details here? What are the facts? Like, how
Right.
many carbs should I be eating a day? Or all these.
Speaking of vegetables, I heard a stat on the radio the other day that said vegan women have an increased libido by like 85%. And
I'd want to see that.
I would
a
too,
little
because
bit.
that really doesn't.
Where'd that come from? Like a
that
vegan
Should we
doesn't-
website?
create another study
I almost
should, because
I almost
that's
said
just
for
but,
other
like,
women.
Do you like keep?
for the sake of the study?
Yeah.
So that just like surprises me. That
Yeah, I don't.
like,
And that's
what
and
would
that- I love
the reasoning be behind that?
right. And that's the thing is you hear these studies. Study says.
Yeah.
Study shows. Well, okay, what was the study about? What were the controls? How many people were in this study?
Right.
Or like the
Who funded it?
yeah, the polls. I always
Yeah.
love like the polls. Oh, polls show that most Americans think this. Well, when you like read the final, it's like, well, we polled 400 people in downtown Los Angeles. Well, that's not exactly representative of most Americans now,
Not
is
at
it?
all.
You know what I mean? So it's you got to know the details behind these things.
I'm gonna laugh. She finds it came from vegannews.com. Just
Yeah,
like one big study.
This one says female libido surges up 380% on a plant-based diet.
What are the details on that?
I don't know.
What are
I'm
the
gonna keep
deets on
looking.
that? Kind
Continue.
of.
Tony, back to your statins. I heard 60% of people over the age of 42 years old or 42-year-old is on statins these days.
Tall,
Do you
dude.
think that's pretty close?
I believe that.
Yeah?
I
That's
believe that.
wild.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of the issues, so like statins are kind of non-selective. Like obviously cholesterol is not a bad thing, but like it just wide sweepingly like smashes it, I guess you could say. And then the doses they prescribe. So I think Atea said that like it was like 80% of the efficacy of statins comes from the lowest dose. And then we keep prescribing higher and higher doses instead of like a combination or what you guys were saying, which I being a clinician, I kind of understand some of this, but it's like beating a dead horse when you're like diet, exercise. But to Cass's point, like maybe, man, and they're not making money off of this or insurance isn't reimbursing. So, but if they could actually go, here's, a dietary plan or hook you up with a nutritionist or here's, a personal trainer that we could get you started with, maybe we wouldn't prescribe as many statins. So,
Yeah. I think with people that have like over 300, maybe is that immediate they throw them on or they say, hey, I guess it's case by case too with doctors out there like, hey, why don't you exercise? You're only 40 years old, get out there. But I guess there's probably some doctors out there. It's like, we need to put you on a statin right away.
There are. I just think kind of looking into like genetics and like calcium tests would give us a better indicator of
Mhm.
like, because I mean like there's some people that they eat incredibly clean and they are beasts at exercising. They have high cholesterol, so like maybe they need a statin, or you know what? Maybe there was no atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease in their family.
Yeah.
Maybe every other relative had high cholesterol and no one died of a heart attack or stroke.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, that's where your guys' baseline lies. Maybe you don't need to be on a statin and get myalgia.
It's also used low dose as a preventative. I was placed on a statin at
Mhm.
18 just simply
Oh,
because
yeah.
I was a type 1
Diabetic,
diabetic.
yeah. Same
And
with lisinopril.
so
and-
anybody who's type 2, yeah, they tried to put me on a BP med too, and my blood pressure was great. And I didn't push back because I didn't know any better. And then
Yeah.
I got pregnant and was like, I'm not taking this anymore and haven't been on it since. But you think of what's the percentage of the population is type 2 diabetic?
Yeah, a lot.
And or if you have prediabetes and they're going to put it on as a preventative,
I think
that's a lot of people on a low dose statin.
I think pre is one out of 3 and 1 out of 4 pre-diabetic, and I think it's like, let's say it's 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 10 is full blown diabetic in the United States.
So there you
Yeah.
go. You have
So,
you even show labs similar to that, and most docs are going to put you on as just a preventative.
And most doctors and most people know the consequences of statins, right? A little bit. Isn't one of the consequences Alzheimer's, dementia? I mean, that's one of the things that kind of strips the fat out of the brain.
Yeah, I mean, you need cholesterol for hormones and brain
Yeah.
function, and then like I said, the myalgia, that muscle aches, like that's probably the primary one that I hear people say. I think it was only reported at like maybe 7 or 8% in the studies, but I'm going to say 1 out of every 3 people I encounter that's on statins seems to go, I had to stop because I had muscle aches, and we tried multiple statins.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
So going back to your point, it's like, cool, you didn't die of a heart attack, but now you've got dementia, Alzheimer's type.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, I heard, another form of diabetes these days. I don't know if you guys heard that at all, or it's like diabetes 3.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about
it's
that. I
like-
didn't dig into that. What was their like?
Yeah,
why
what's
did-
their correlation there?
I think it's, well, I mean, it's, there's a couple people that were on Rogan, a couple people, but just like a disconnect there. When you have diabetes, there's always a disconnect with the messenger. So I didn't study it too closely. I just kind of broadly overview of it, but yeah, I do think it's fascinating to where we can take something to cure an illness, but there's a consequence always down the road by taking something versus can I mitigate this by diet, exercise, sleep,
change the lifestyle? Yeah.
change the lifestyle. I get when you're 70 years old and you're set in your ways, you're not going to change. Hey, I just want quality life back. Just give me something that I don't have to
Right.
change my life for, But I guess I'm always a proponent to try to find the root cause to something and fix it. That way you don't have to take pharmaceuticals or stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I think there's a time and place for everything, though.
to have quality and quantity is kind of what I always shoot for with patients. Because we can give you quantity, but if you don't have quality, like, do you really want to live 10 more years and be miserable?
Sure.
Right. Well, it's like, I think it kind of comes back always to, is there a best way to approach this? Is there a best management practice for whatever it might be? We've been talking about diabetes. Obviously, type 1 is, there's not much you can do for a busted pancreas. So they're kind of different. But,
Base editing, get some CRISPR in there, baby.
hey,
It's gonna
I'm here for
happen.
it. We grow a pancreas. But the vast majority of type 2 diabetics in the United States, because there's a ton of them, most of it's from lack of exercise and diet, right? I mean, it's just how it is. And it's like our food system is fucking terrible. Like once you understand like how they make food, like I can't walk through like a grocery store and like look at like the shelves and shelves of quote unquote food and go, this is just a lab. All these are is just a bunch of chemicals in the shelves. But I digress. All right, yeah. Do we have a medication that can help you? Yeah. But it would also help if you stop chugging soda and eating fast food for every single meal. That would probably cure a lot of your problems. And then there are going to be still a portion of the population that have those genetic things
Yeah.
that just, hey, we've seen people where it's like marathon athletes and stuff that are phenomenally healthy. They eat right, but they're still type 2 diabetic. That happens too, right? So, okay, maybe now when does modern medicine come in and try to give a little bit better quality over that. But you see these people that are not like 200 pounds overweight,
Mhm.
you know, that just kind of blows my mind that like just the statistics are there. The overweight population of America is it's uh, coincidentally increased with our disease and illnesses.
Yeah, what is it, 72 or 74% are obese or overweight in the United States? And that could be based on like just straight BMI. So there may be, a percent or two off for
Mhm.
like
Yeah, but
body
still,
fat
yeah,
percentage.
not
No,
65% off. You
It's
know what I mean?
it's a lot.
Yeah, like we have the biggest, pharmaceutical, the biggest medical system in the world, the most advanced medical system in the world. But the health and sickness walks in lockstep with that. It seems like, the more they advance, the sicker we get. And it's just like, how's that working?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think there's still good that comes out of it. I think there's a lot of good that still comes out of it. So you got to take the good with the bad. And yeah, we are advancement, but I think there's still kind of some propaganda to keep people kind of sick on their own. So, and I guess I've been more naturopathic in my ways in the last 3 years to try to get to root causes and eat whole foods and, exercise more, get sunlight, grounding, the whole 9 yards, and try to figure out my health. That's why I've been doing a lot of fasting lately and trying to kind of mitigate cancers in the future and de-inflammation in my body. So yeah, it's been a journey to try to do all these things. And like, you see people doing it online and it kind of seems cliche and
Right.
oh, another cold bath, another
Right.
sauna, and all these things. But I don't know. I like challenging myself and being disciplined and trying things that I don't like to do. And doing a 90-day or 90-hour fast is not something that I jump into too willingly and be like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do every week. This is fun.
Right.
So, have you guys ever tried a long fast before at all?
I've gone maybe pushed 48 hours.
Yeah.
But nothing where I was nothing quite like 90. But again, I think you talked about like the anecdotal. There's a little bit, you never know what you're going to like until you find it, right? Or what's
Yeah.
going to help you until you try something different.
Sure.
And trying something holistically and natural, that makes sense, right? But you mentioned the 90-day fast.
I know, I said it too.
That'd be did you say that?
Yeah.
But 90-hour fast, and that was kind of, you did that a few months ago. Have you done it since then? Or
Yeah, I just did one last week actually.
Oh, yeah?
I was like, I
Okay.
better have it fresh in my mind since they
Okay.
asked me some questions. Well, how'd you feel? What'd you do?
So what was the origination of this, and why did you want to do it? And then
Yeah. So I think with like some things I've been trying with like cold baths and stuff like that, and working out a little bit more and eating better, like whole foods, and trying to do more of a keto lifestyle. I've had some like health issues in the past 10 years that I've been trying to see if I can modify them a little bit and slow them down. And years and years spent going to get MRIs and talking to neurologists and all these things about it, and getting nowhere, getting no answers, and getting no treatments, and spending tens of thousands of dollars for my health. It's just like, okay, well, maybe I should just take it in my own hands and see if I can really pin it down and fix it. So that's kind of the originator of all this stuff, why to try it. So when I set out to do the 90-hour fast, I think I was going in for 48 hours. It wasn't even like I was going to do 90, but I got to a point where I'm like, I feel pretty good. I'm just going to keep this going to 72. And then I realized when I got to 72, it was like 8 o'clock at night. I was like, well, I'm not going to start trying to eat at 8 o'clock at night because it's a slow process. You have to literally like drink some bone broth and have a little bit of eggs and some sauerkraut, and then wait 2 hours, then eat a little bit more. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go till tomorrow and break it then. And it's amazing how you feel when you're on it. Like the first day is probably, if you don't intermittent fast much, it kind of sucks. You're getting hungry by 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock rolls around. You're like, this sucks. But the next day you wake up, you're like, oh, well, this is fine. I'm gonna get up, and intermittent fast mentality in my head for the day, and 1 o'clock I'll eat.
Are you having water during this?
Yeah. So I am having
just,
water.
Just water?
Yeah, there are a fast out there that people don't do water, and they say like autophagy and everything is even higher. But I don't know. I feel like I need my electrolytes and water because I do a little bit of Himalayan salt on top of it.
Yeah.
How long can you go? Is it 72 out without
Isn't it
water.
like 3
Isn't it like 3
days?
days? Yeah.
Yeah, it's something in that range. Maybe a week. Is it a week? I mean,
I didn't even think it was that long. I'm sure I thought it was literally like 3 days.
I've always heard 3 days, but
yeah,
Maybe there's some people that have
I think
like
I
a
mean,
camel or something.
I guess there's a lot of variables depending on how you're exerting yourself.
On
and-
average, 3 days.
it's
3
like, I
days.
always thought it was like 3 minutes without oxygen, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food.
Okay. Yeah.
'Cause I don't know if roughly.
I'm sure
No, that
there's-
makes sense.
I'm sure there's outliers though, because you said
Oh, yeah.
on average. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to take into consideration like activity level, health beforehand, those sort of things. If you're having any food,
yeah,
'Cause, like,
it has
if you're
water in
eating
it,
but you're
yeah,
just not
yeah.
drinking, you're still gonna be able to get something out of that. So, but on
True.
average, it says 3 days.
I was gonna ask, like, when you were doing this fast, like, what were your activity levels like? Were you still working out? Were you
Yeah.
doing cardio. What was that like?
I was still going to work every day. And then honestly, the energy that you feel from having a fast, you feel like working out. You feel
Okay.
like talking a bunch. I feel like my mental clarity is better fasted than it is when I'm sitting there, eating. So I don't know. I don't try to go in and like build muscle and do a bunch of reps and but I'll do some cardio, go in, do a little bit of workout, slight workout, get my heart going, then go sit in the sauna.
Yeah.
But they say like after 3 to 4 days, your body could potentially start eating your muscle.
Yeah.
And so there is a little bit of a sweet spot there from like 72 hours to 90 hours to even 5 days to where, okay, a lot of it is always just pulling fat off your body and using that as ketones and energy. So I would say my sweet spot right now is that 90 hours. That's what I keep doing because the day before I broke my fast, I was sitting there and my wife was making all these like chicken wraps, buffalo chicken wraps, essentially with blue cheese, and it just smelled great. And I'm just like, I could break it right now, but I can't eat that. I have to do bone broth and all this stuff, and it's already 6 o'clock at night, so I just had to suffer through. And I went to bed early, and I woke up that next day just being like, I can keep this train rolling for a couple more days. But I already had it in my head that I was breaking it at lunch, which, yeah, I would say. I try not to like keep working out every day,
Yeah.
but like the first 3 days, I think you can work out entirely and feel the same way. Like I don't feel drained at all or anything, but I wouldn't recommend it to somebody that has like, 10% body fat or 8% body fat, like really low to where they have nothing to give there.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
feel like I'm in like the 22% body fat range to where it's like, yeah, it's plenty. Go ahead and take this off me, which I think I was 221 when I started the fast, and I got down to 211 at the end of it. So, I mean, 10 pounds, I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
So,
What did you end up maintaining that? Because typically most people fluctuate 5 pounds in a day.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you have water weight and all those different things. So really,
Yeah.
10 pounds in 3 days, it sounds like a lot.
Right.
I guess it'd be, 3 days, right? Whatever it is, 4 days. Almost.
Just under 4.
Yeah, just under 4.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like a lot, but really like 5 pounds of that could have been just
Water.
your water retention from the food you're eating, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. But you felt good after naturally?
Yeah. Yeah. I stepped on the scale this morning. It was 213.5. So I think with, if you would break your fast and go right into like a high carb or high sugar diet, yeah, you're going to bounce right up and you're going to like, spike your insulin and everything.
Probably feel like trash for a
Oh,
couple days.
100%. Yeah, I would. I
can't imagine.
But yeah,
How did you decide what to ease back into? Like starting with the bone broth and things.
Yeah.
Like how did you determine what to start off with?
Absolutely. So a lot of like YouTube studying and like all these doctors that come out with like the best things. It's like, so bone broth is good to kind of feed your gut bacteria and kind of ease you in and get your stomach ready with the enzymes and everything. Sauerkraut or kimchi.
Fermented, yeah. I wondered
Fermented.
if that's what you were doing. Was
Yeah.
trying to get the fermented.
So it kind of feeds your gut a little bit more and kind of gets it ready for something bigger to go in. And then I did ground beef, like over easy eggs and some avocado. So something that has a lot of good fats, good proteins, and even then
easily digestible.
yeah, kind of. Even then I waited like, I think it was bone broth a half hour, sauerkraut a half hour later, and then an hour later I did like the big meal. And after I ate that, you could just feel your stomach kind of like turning around, like hearing it, like, oh,
what the hell am I supposed to do with
is something
all
gonna
this?
happen? Like, I'm at work, I don't want, but it worked itself out. And honestly, it's like you think about it, like you fantasize about food more than you're hungry. It's like I'm not that hungry, but I'm looking at that and I'm kind of like, yeah, that looks good. I would love to have that right now. And then once you break your fast, you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't very climatic. It's
Yeah.
like very anticlimactic. So, um, I would say I could have went five days and been okay. But I guess there is an ROI to a lot of these things, and it's just like once you hit that 90-hour, that 3-day mark, your stem cell production, your autophagy, your HGH production, it's all pretty high at that point. But I think it starts tapering off, to what you're actually getting from it, and that's kind of why I was doing it. Is like, if there is parts of my body that need repaired, stem cells are obviously good. HGH is good because once you hit a certain age, it's going to decrease. And, the energy level that I feel and the way my body feels, like, we're all kind of, you might be late 30s. I'm 40 now this year. The way my body feels when I wake up, it's like, but when I'm fasted, I wake up, I'm like, I don't feel any of that.
Right.
So there is a lot of pros to it, and I don't know if there's a level of people that could get addicted to doing it. But I'm definitely in like another week gonna do another 90. I already told Whitney that. I'm like, yep, I'm doing it again. So just because how I feel.
So how do you decide when you're going to do it? Do you wait until you feel like, oh, I probably need it? Or do you like to have it on the calendar and just say, I'm committing to doing it again? Like,
Yeah.
how long do you want to wait in between
I
fasts?
think that's so new right now for me to like create a schedule. I think the commitment of just telling myself I'm gonna do it again is probably enough. But I did the 90-hour during the summer last year, and then I did the 90 last week. And so it was kind of realization like how good I feel. I'm like, let me try it again in 2 weeks. And so I think it's enough time to where I can kind of give myself some nourishment and throw a bunch of protein back in my body and fats and stuff like that to do it again in 2 weeks and then see how I feel, do it again in 2 weeks. So I think I'm doing it pretty much almost bi-weekly at this point, to see if it has benefits. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I think there is. I think, for whatever reason, we all too often cast aside anecdotal evidence for people.
Mm.
And it's, like I said, it's whatever makes you feel the best, right? I know I've changed the way I've eaten and on plenty of different levels. And it's like, okay, well, this feels good. Like, all right. Like, and it, you start, I remember thinking when I was younger, like, oh man, upper 30s, it's game over, right? That's when everything just starts going down. You hit 40. That's because it was always like, oh, you're over the hill after 40. Like everything's
Yeah.
just kind of like, well, I just got to coast from here on out, But I haven't felt as good as I do now. I mean, I still carry with me, like old injuries and things like that I've deserved and collected along the way. I'm sure, but I never thought I would be 37, looking in the mirror, going, oh, okay. Like, you don't have to start dying after you hit 35. Like, okay, this is cool. But I can contribute a lot to the way I'm eating, what I'm eating. And it's been a massive difference just by, the processed foods, like cutting those out and realizing all those things. And just, I'm not necessarily on a keto or any specific diet, but I find myself, eating probably like 75%, just a carnivore diet.
Yeah.
It's just good.
Steak and eggs.
Yeah,
Steak
like
and eggs.
I don't eat many eggs during the winter, because our chickens stop laying them as much, and then we occasionally have to like buy store-bought eggs.
Sure.
So I'm like, well, I just won't eat them. I'll let you guys eat the nice eggs. I used to eat jerky and nuts in the morning for breakfast. That's just kind of I can live off of jerky. But like I found like I get up in the morning, I work out fasted, start working, and just kind of snack. Sometimes I'll have lunch, sometimes I won't. I just kind of like nibble throughout the day, and then dinner time, it's like, all right, just give me a giant bowl of meat, please. And that's usually what ends up happening. And I wake up feeling great. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, I guess this is because I always used to get up, eat a big breakfast. I was like, I have to eat breakfast before I do anything. And then I started working out in the morning. So I was like, I hate working out in the morning. So why am I doing this? Because I won't do it if I don't. But then I'd go there and I feel like I'm going to throw up because I was so hungry. Because I'd always eat in the morning. So I'm like, how am I going to manage this? Because I can't eat a bunch before I go work out, because that doesn't work either. So I just kind of worked through it. And now I feel great working out fasted. So it's like sometimes your body just takes a little bit of time to adjust to something new
Right.
before, a lot of things, especially things that are good for you, tend to suck at first, right? Stopping smoking cigarettes, stop drinking so much, stopping eating fast food and like candies and sodas and all things. Those things kind of suck at first, but then afterwards, you wait a month or two and you realize like you don't partake in those things. It's like, oh, well, that was making me feel like shit all the time,
Yeah.
and I just didn't realize it. It's like, okay, what else can I do?
So with that, you're probably naturally ketogenic right now.
I
If you're
don't
not
know,
eating a lot of
like,
carbs and
no, I do eat. I don't eat a lot of carbs, but sometimes, like for dinner, like, well, I'll make a bunch of like mashed potatoes. I'll smoke a big thing of meat and make
yeah.
mashed potatoes or something like that. But if it's carbs, it's something that like we make,
Mhm.
and I'll munch on some pretzels. But otherwise, it's fruit stuff like because I
Yeah.
eat fruit too. So it's just more so just instead of, I guess maybe like as a early millennial, like you grow up kind of thinking like, well, you have to have like, at least for me, it was like, all right, well, you have to have your square meals, right?
Mhm.
With all the things presented. It's like, well, no, like not always. Like, so it felt weird at first, just like, I'm just going to eat some meat and some fruit and that's going to be it. And it's like, well, that doesn't look like dinner because there's not like a carb. There's not all these other things that we're told that like every
Right.
single time you eat, you have to like engorge on grains and
Right.
these things. It's like, well, that doesn't have to be that way.
I can't imagine eating like that anymore. I'm so far away from that these days. Like to wake up and be like, I need my bacon, eggs, toast with jelly and stuff
My
like
glass
that.
of orange juice.
And then at lunch, I need to go get some Mexican with tortillas and beans and rice, and then I'm dinner another 3-course meal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's no wonder
it'd
we're
be
all
crazy.
overweight.
It'd be crazy.
Yeah.
So typically I'm always intermittent fasting every single day, and then by 1-2 o'clock is then when I go home for lunch and like make basically steak and eggs or something like that, and then I'll eat again at like 7 o'clock. But some days I only eat once, and that's not very enjoyable though.
No.
It's like waiting till 6 o'clock to eat something.
Yeah, and it's hard. That's too hard for me to get enough calories in, too.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that because I'm lighter now than I've been in probably over 15 years. Just because I've just changed how
Yeah.
I'm, proceeding in my life. But I still go to the gym and work out, still want to keep as much muscle as I can. But it's hard. Like, I don't know how these people intermittent fast for 18 hours at like on the regular.
Mhm.
Because it's like, how do you get, how am I supposed to get like 3,000, 3,500 calories in 4 hours?
Yeah.
Like, I can't, like, that's rough,
Yeah.
So like, I was like, you know what? And I'm working. So it's like, all right, I need something. Like sometimes I just need some food because especially getting up and working out fasted, then it feels weird to me. And I don't know, maybe I'm wrong here, but it feels really weird to me to not fuel my body for another 8 hours at all
Mhm.
after a workout. That's like, that seems like that would be counterintuitive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe if if I was working out in the evenings, you fast all day, you work out fasted, and then you go home and eat
Mhm.
all your 3,000 calories or whatever it is. But I don't know. It just seems like maybe I don't need to do that. But I
Yeah.
feel good as I am. So
It just depends on the level of maintenance and the level of muscle you have in your body. You got to feed it a certain amount.
right,
If
or I'm just gonna keep
trying
on
to
losing
that-
weight.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Typically with my intermittent fast, it's like 16-24, so I can eat from like 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock and be all right. So I think that's fine. The whole 4 hour window, that'd be tricky. And then you're just scarfing within like 4 hours and trying to. I can't do that.
Yeah,
So
it sounds miserable.
yeah, too much. But also, I did the thing back when I was like in my early 20s when I was lifting a lot more to where you're eating every 2.5-3 hours.
Done that. Yeah,
And
I've
it's-
done that almost
Yeah.
my whole life.
And you portion, 8 things
Yeah.
every day, and it's all like the wheat and the low fat chicken and stuff like that. And it's just like that was kind of miserable, because nothing tasted good. You're putting hot sauce and everything, and it's just like, I mean, you could do it, but I'd rather this style of diet where you're getting steak, eggs, avocado, stuff like that, good fats.
Yeah, and I've done the rice and chicken, right? The
Mhm.
bodybuilder rice and chicken, but like keeping the proteins and carbs high. But man, I don't know. The last year or so, I've changed my diet to a point where I'm eating just like I said, steak, eggs, and all those things, and I'm just housing them.
Yeah.
And I keep losing weight, and I keep getting more shredded. Like I would like to be at the point where I'm at right now. Before I used to have to like plan all my meals out, count all my like really nail it all down. And I wonder if it was because, just eating carbs and super lean meat and chicken all the time, like I was probably just destroying my body because my body's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
You realize that at least I've seen, I think, the demonization of fat in our diets has kind of done us a disservice because,
Absolutely.
I mean, unless there's something going on that I don't know of, I feel phenomenal when I'm eating, just like red meats and things like that,
Yeah.
and normal, like in good, like whole foods. They're just real foods. It's like, well, I don't know, this feels right. Feel pretty good.
It's amazing, the body, the ability to adapt and kind of change and modify, and like, this is what I feel good about eating now. And, back to her point about the ice baths and with women, and maybe it's not as beneficial to women in general, but you got to think thousands of years ago when we didn't really live inside houses and stay inside, we were outside more. We didn't have all these nice clothing, possibly. So we had loincloths and stuff like that. We're probably exposed to these elements a lot more, and we can build up more of a resistance or some kind of marriage with it, and I think it is healthier. But that would be fascinating to hear if there is any scientific evidence out there with women getting an ice bath that's not as beneficial to men. So I do support them getting an ice bath over there. I would say do it anyhow. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, that's always the one thing though, like because they have a sauna at the gym, which
Yeah.
I really like. That's like one of the things I never thought I'd consider buying for like myself.
Mhm.
But I'm like, man, it'd be really nice to have a nice sauna.
Right.
Like, I could sit in it anytime I want because I love it. But the ice bath thing at a public place, just I don't know. I've heard of gyms like having their like ice baths. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I want to
Dip in
take
that
a
same
public ice bath because I know there's people that go in the gym because
I think they have the ones that circulate the water constantly.
yeah, you'd have to, right?
Yeah, they're kind of like a hot tub. You
Yeah.
put chemicals in them, they filter through a filter.
Yeah, but then how good is the ice bath for me anyways? I'm sitting in a
yeah, a bunch of chlorine
yeah.
again.
It's like you can never win.
Yeah. I just sat in a sauna this morning. I go to the Y, and they have a sauna that's probably like a 10-person sauna.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful, and you can pour water over the rocks and everything, even though not supposed to do that. But is there an infrared sauna over at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an infrared sauna.
So it
at this
doesn't
gym.
probably get as hot as
It
like
doesn't.
155 maybe, or
Yeah, you're lucky to get it up to like 150s.
yeah.
But I guess the infrared's good for you too. But either way, I was
Yeah.
like, man, like I like it. I like it hot, like because I'm a sweater anyways. Like when I work out, so it's just nice. That, like when it's kind of like the same thing as the ice bath or the shower, the cold shower. It's like when you get done, it's like everything just like feels like the air. Like you can just like feel the air around you. You're like, this
Yeah.
feels awesome.
Yeah.
And it's until you experience that,
Right.
you just don't understand what people are talking about. And it's like you see this like you said I lost the word, but the craze. That's the
Yeah.
craze of like, oh, all these influencers, ice bath, all these things. It's like, all right, well, some of it's bullshit.
Mhm.
Sure. But try it and find out for yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I hear people, it's like, oh, I'm the cold showers. No way. Like, never do that. Well, how do you know you're gonna like it or not? You try it. Like, if you try it enough, like maybe it might be
Yeah.
like, oh, because that's how I was. I was like, I don't want to do those things. Like, I don't have anything to prove. I don't. But then you do, and it's like, oh, this actually just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So I guess it's worth it, right?
I mean, there's a lot of people out there that do not step outside their comfort zone at all, and I think an ice bath, a sauna, a fast, anything that you're like kind of you got to put a lot of level of discipline into, and it's very kind of uncomfortable when you come out of that. Just the way you feel is, I think, worth it in my book. Just this morning I did like 20 minutes in the sauna, and then you get out and you describe like just feeling the air and like I'm free from this. And it kind of, I think it's probably up in your dopamine production, your serotonin production.
It feels like it.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I don't know. I'm a pretty proponent to it all. And, maybe I've fallen victim a little bit to a lot of these biohacking stuff because I got the red light at home and, I do all kinds of weird shit. But I think there is some good with everything.
But it doesn't sound like you're just relying on just that. I think the people that are like doing the craze, like that are just Like,
this is
oh,
gonna fix
that's
me.
the answer.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to lose weight.
Right.
Well, no, like sitting in an ice bath is not going to make you lose weight. You know, it's like you said, it's just a little biohack. It's a little
Mhm.
thing that can put some coins on the positive side. But
Yeah.
you still have to do all these other things.
Oh yeah.
And I think that people fall victim to this is it. This is going to be the thing that fixes me. Just like people
Yeah.
can still be obese intermittent fasting. 'Cause during their 8-hour, 6-hour window, they
Right.
still eat like shit. Like
Yeah.
you're not using the biohack the way that it's supposed to be used for a
Yeah.
positive benefit. But I don't think that you fall in victim to
Well-
that because you're doing all of the positive things. You know, you're not just
Right.
relying on this one thing to like fix you.
Yeah, I'm not doing like the whole blue light blocking all day long where I'm wearing the yellow glasses like a goofball or anything like that. But, I think 90% of your health is based on a few things, how you sleep, how you exercise, how you eat, stuff like that. That's 90% of it. And then the other 10% could be that red light therapy, could be that ice bath, could be the sauna, stuff like that. So,
Yeah. I think it's all like icing on the cake type of things.
yeah.
Because I've realized throughout the years of the experiments that I've done with my body, I'll put it that way, just food alone, it still strikes me. Even, I mean, this was years and years and years ago before I ever really got involved in like trying to be healthy. I was lifting, I was just trying to, in my 20s, I was just trying to be big and strong and jacked. So, I was out there like starting to like eat bags of donuts with like a half a gallon of chocolate milk every single morning for breakfast, just because I
Damn.
needed all the calories. I was
Yeah.
outside working all day, and we would stop at the gas station on the way to the job site, grab a half a gallon of chocolate milk and a bag of donuts, each one of us, and just house them. And then eat a giant lunch and eat all these things just because I was trying to put on weight and all these whatever. But like you realize slowly I started making decisions in my diet that made me realize things along the way. Because of that, I exchanged like candy bars and desserts for protein bars that were kind of like, oh, this is kind of my dessert, but I need more protein because I was trying to get big. And then, all right, well, fast food, like that can get expensive. Plus it makes me shit myself, and it's so like, all right, now I'm just trying to get my macros in order so I can get bigger and stronger. And incidentally, along the way, I would stop eating fast food. I stopped drinking soda. I stopped not because I was worried about the impacts they have on my health, but because they were taking up space of protein and carbs that I needed to get bigger and
Yeah.
stronger. And then I realized like going back to those things, and thinking about like, oh, whenever I drank a Mountain Dew Code Red, which I loved, I'd feel like shit because Red 5 destroyed my body. I would
Yeah.
get like my insides would cramp up. I was like, I knew when I would buy them, well, I can't drink this too fast because my insides will cramp up.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy, yeah, because I'm fucking poisoning myself. I realized going back and eating fast food. I literally told people like I wouldn't eat Burger King. That was the one fast food I wouldn't eat because their burgers would destroy me. I would feel like giant pile of shit for 4 hours.
Right.
And I would be almost in pain. And then I realized like, oh, all of this shit's that's what everyone's eating. Like I'm just able to notice it because I've cut it out.
Yeah.
And then when you bring it back in, you're like, oh, your body's like, hey, this is poison. It's like, oh shit. And then 10 years later, I like realizing, all right, now let's start doing the other icing on the cake type things. I go in and do cardio. I fucking hate it. But after I get done, I feel great. And I do all the things that suck. And it's like, after you get done, it's like, oh, okay, this is worth it because it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are things that are not just, snake oil.
I think most of us deep down know it's bad. Like I drive through the North End occasionally and I'm like seeing everybody at like the Wendy's drive through and the Burger King drive through and the McDonald's drive through and thinking, wow, they're still busy these days. It's like you figured they would have like a cut in revenue with all this knowledge out there, these, the age of the internet. And like there's a lot of people out there on YouTube, TikTok talking about the downsides of all this stuff.
Not
And
enough.
I think most of them know it's not good for me, but it's convenient
Mhm.
and it tastes good. And, they're on these high carb diets and they're always hungry. And I'm sure you were always hungry when you're
Oh,
eating
yeah.
donuts in the morning and, sucking down sugar because it's very addictive. You just want to go back and get another hit of it. But yeah, it's fascinating to me that what we do to our body knowingly, it's like, nope, I know I'm poisoning myself. Even alcohol these days is like, I've been trying to cut back on that a lot. So poisoning our body with certain foods and alcohols and everything, and not being a more static lifestyle. It's just it's not for me anymore. So
Yeah, and that's the scary part because I continue
especially
to
getting older.
yeah, I continue to find myself in the situation where I'm like, okay, logically putting all these pieces together of all the information and knowledge that's being shared. Okay, I said, yeah, I probably should cut this out. Probably
Yeah.
shouldn't do this. And then when it's like it's like almost begrudgingly, it's like, well, I guess I should stop. I should cut back on drinking alcohol. Okay, and then I do, and it's like, well, this feels fucking great. Why
Yeah.
did I do this? Or am I like, why did I ever like do this? But you still like, eat the cake
Yeah.
occasionally and do
Yeah.
those things because it's
Time and
good.
a place.
Yeah, and then you realize, at least for me, it's like, all right, now my portions of those things have shrunk because I
Yeah.
know, like, if I eat a giant, like, if I go to Cold Stone and get a Love It,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to finish that thing. I'm gonna be halfway through and go, oh god, I feel like I'm gonna fucking pass out. Like,
You're also a pretty cheap drunk at this point.
yeah,
I can get you drunk really easy now.
Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I think
Which does save money.
it does.
I think it's all about momentum too. It's like if you have a healthy body, you can kind of process that a little better too. Like say, if you're 30 pounds heavier and you didn't work out as much, you're not doing as much cardio, you're eating sugar in the morning, and then all of a sudden you're going back to that alcohol and drinking the alcohol, it's going to take you longer to recover after drinking that than you at your healthiest, being
Yeah,
shredded and feeling healthy, feeling good. You drink the alcohol, the next day you might feel a little bad from it, but you go get a workout in and do some other stuff, and you're back to par.
yeah. Let's
you
move
know?
on. It's
So
taking those baby steps. I know we talked to one of our friends recently and had a bunch of conversations with him. And really, it's what I tell anybody that approaches. I've been approaching the gym, different things about whatever. I'm not an expert by any means, but it's always the biggest piece of advice I can give anybody. It's baby steps.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, baby steps. And he took that to heart, and now he's had this incredible journey where his health is just clearing up so much better. He's feeling better. He has energy. He's mentally like feeling so much better about life. And it was like, he's like, man, I can't tell you how much enough that just slow progress and consistency. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Just a little bit at a time. A little
Yeah.
bit, like Tony said, if we can wake up and just be a little bit better than we were the day before, you're not always going to succeed in that. But if you succeed more days than not,
hmm
where are you going to be from a year from now, 2 years, 5 years, and look back and go, look at this journey I had because I woke up and tried to do a little better every day. And in a way, it wasn't anything huge. It's just little tiny pieces.
Yeah.
You look back and go, man, I'm glad I did that. It's really neat to see people doing those things.
It's easy to get scared away too. I mean, throwing somebody in the gym that never really works out, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're super sore and they're like, this isn't for me. But if you can go every day for like 2 weeks and then just see the results on the scale, or see the results just when you wake up and feel a little bit better, use that as motivation to keep going.
Yeah, and you don't have to go in there and kill it and be super sore. I think that's a big mistake
Yeah.
that a lot of people make is they go in there and they get super sore and they think like this is how it works.
Mhm.
Well, no, you don't have to. Like, just go take a walk.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
was gonna say he's not even in the gym.
Oh yeah.
He's
This
just
particular
making
person, yeah.
better choices with his food, and he said he tries to make a goal of like movement every day.
Yeah.
And he cut out alcohol. I think that's probably the biggest
Yeah. That's a
positive
big one. Yep.
because he was drinking quite a bit. He didn't realize like, oh, I might have a problem with this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's been a few months. I can't remember the
Yeah.
last time he told us that he had alcohol. And we're like, it's so if you mess up, just keep going.
Mhm.
Not only is it baby steps, but when you fall off, just get back. But like he's not even going to the gym. He gets up and he walks around
Yeah.
his neighborhood and he just eats better. And he's like, it's unbelievable how the changes I'm making are so easy and such small baby steps. They're just piling on top of each other every
Yeah.
day. And I'm being consistent. His A1C went from 6.4 to 4.7 or something. His liver enzymes were horrible. And they're better, like, because he just went to the doctor this week. And I don't know what his weight loss is at this point.
Yeah, I
but
don't know. But
the fact that he doesn't tell us what his weight loss is, but he's telling us, like, his labs are better. He feels so much better. Like, it's
Yeah,
just,
that's what's important.
it's so cool. Yeah, like, the weight loss is for sure
Yeah,
there.
yeah, that's number on the scale is
But
just
that's not
one.
what he's even concerned
Yeah.
about. And that's just really, really, really cool.
I would love to have a time machine to go back to like my late teens, early 20s, and eat like I'm eating now and not drink like I'm not
Oh,
drinking and just like feel how my body would feel from it.
yeah.
Because your body's so resilient back then. And it's like there isn't much disease. And it's just like as you get older, you realize that things hurt a lot more. You drink one night, have a really good night, and the next day you're like hungover for 2 days. But when you're young, you can just keep doing it and do it. So it'd be interesting because my diet when I was like early 20s, late teens, and even like in high school, eating those school pizzas and
Oh,
chicken
God, yeah, I've eaten
sandwiches,
some gas
French
station
fries,
pizzas. Trust me.
and it's just like, how well would I have felt, not doing that?
Yeah, and how
you
good could
know?
I feel now? Because I
Yeah,
think about that now, because like I know there's big markers physically that I could go back to and say I can still feel this day.
yeah,
I can still feel it when I did this on the football field or this in the gym or so then it's like, oh man, there's a lot of things that I put in my body that I don't know if I can feel that. Like how many dings and dents did I collect along the way? Like that's concerning, but at this point I don't have a time machine. So
yeah,
I'm going to do whatever I can from now to this point forward
right.
to do what I can because well, I can't be concerned about the things of the past now because I
Yeah,
can't change them, but
yeah,
it's it is funny just as you gain the knowledge and looking back and going, oh man. And it was right in front of your face I was like right in front
yeah,
of my face the whole time, like some of the things I did to my bodies and my body and my teens to 20s. It was like,
mhm.
but it is what it is, right?
Everyone has to go through it. And to convince a 20-year-old to,
Yeah,
hey,
you were
you
convincing
you don't
me.
need all that monster, you don't need the prime,
Oh
you don't need to
God.
do all that to your body,
Yeah.
but they like the feeling of it, and I don't know. I think the prime and the whole energy scene is gonna really blow up at some point in their face.
Yeah, I think
You
so.
know, I can't imagine taking that much caffeine these days. I can barely do like 100 milligrams. So
Yeah, I'm dialed all the way back to coffee and that's it. And it's
yeah,
like, but I used to, multiple energy drinks a day. And it's like,
yeah.
oh God, that sounds so terrible.
Oh, I used to love geeking out before the gym on like Super Pump and C4 and everything.
Jacked.
Yeah,
Make me tingle.
250 milligrams of caffeine. Let's go. Like it was great, but not anymore. I usually do like creatine. That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
So
I have started doing like I take creatine constantly because I've done that constantly throughout my lifting, and but do some like greens and stuff like that because I don't eat a ton of vegetables during the winter, particularly. During the summer we grow a bunch of our own, but um, there's some, I think going back to what Tony said earlier, where it's there's like the stages of all right, what can I do naturally? What can I get through? Maybe if I can't get it naturally, what can I get through supplementation? And then how much further do we need to take this?
yeah,
Like is kind of um everybody's own path to take, right? But especially in the winter, it's like, all right, I'm gonna take a little extra vitamin D because it's Ohio and I
yeah.
don't see the sun a lot. The last couple of days have been really really nice. But it's just you realize like it just makes you feel so much better when you're like, oh, your body needs these building blocks. Here you go.
Yeah.
I feel great. Well, wow, that's surprising. Right? It's so easy when you break it down, but it's so hard on a day-to-day basis not to, you know.
A day like yesterday was surreal for the Midwest people. It's like 65 degrees, sunny. It's like
It
it should
feels
be
like we always have one of those, though, right?
we do.
Like,
Yeah. It's like, hey, no, it'll be there. Just stay with us for a little longer.
yeah.
Give us a little hope.
Yeah. It feels like it should be illegal to like go back to work or whatever you're doing. It's like, all right, everyone just leave for the day. Like
Yeah, we should
go
have
get some vitamin D exposure and so much seasonal depression out there for people.
I think that'd be a phenomenal holiday whenever we get like our 2 days in February that it
Yeah.
turns out to be 60, because inevitably it seems like we always have a little right around the February time frame. We always
Yeah.
have a little burst of beautiful weather because
Something.
I can remember years and years because I spent a lot of time outside where we'd be out working February in t-shirts. And everyone's like, "Oh, this is crazy weather." It's like this happens every single year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even recently someone said, "Man, this weather is unbelievable. Maybe that climate change is a thing." I'm like, this has been doing this for decades. Like I
Yeah.
remember this happens. It's going to get cold again. It's fine. They're like, "Well, yeah, but we didn't get any closer to the sun." I'm like, I don't know what kind of conversation we could have at this point, but
It is kind of funny with the climate extremist out there. It's like when it's super cold, you're like, look how cold it is. They're like, no. Weather doesn't dictate the climate. That comes on a big trend line. You have to put the numbers in. And then when it's like hot in the winter, like, see, climate change. It's like, what? Okay, well.
yeah, it is funny to see because there's so many of those conversations happening these days where it's there's always like those two sides, right?
Yeah.
But I don't see a lot of people like talking about the likeliness of what's happening in the middle.
Yeah.
Usually that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's somewhere, whatever conversation it might be or
Right.
argument, it's usually something in the middle of the 2 points.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's because we've seen a lot of that. Weather's super hot, climate change. Weather's super cold, climate change. This coral reef is as big as it's ever been, climate change. It's like, well, which one is it here, folks? Like,
Right.
I don't know.
Is the climate changing? Yes.
Has it always?
Is the planet dynamic? Also true.
Yeah, we're kind of on a rock spinning through.
Yeah. Do we have an
Yeah.
emergency? Probably not. Has California flooded before and had landslides? Yes, like a lot. Like
yeah.
that's not supposedly climate change. So, but anything that does happen these days, any kind of weather or tornadoes in Florida and stuff like that, it's always deemed.
Well, someone's got to
climate
sell a
change.
headline, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's usually what it ends up boiling down to is someone's got to sell something.
Yeah.
So they need to induce some kind of need for the
Right.
product.
The part that kind of scares me though, when you're looking at going to get a flight and you're just like, I'm just looking for the cheapest flight available. And then you see like the carbon of like how much you're using per flight. It's like, I don't give a shit about that. Like, I'm sorry, but why are you putting that there? What's the purpose?
Right.
And what could that turn into? It's like now that could turn into, okay, well, you used X amount of carbon every year. You've hit your allowance. So you're going to have to stay home for the rest of the year. Like,
Yeah, that's terrifying.
yeah.
Or you have to pay a tax.
Or you have to pay a
Yeah,
tax
I
to
mean-
use more of it.
Yeah, and there's conversations on both of those points happening on the daily in some circles.
Or just make enough money that you buy your own fucking jet and you do
Yeah,
whatever you
touche.
want.
because then if no one cares, right? If you
Yeah.
have a private
Yeah.
jet, no one cares about your carbon
No,
jet.
they,
Right.
they do. I just saw that Taylor
Or yacht.
Swift wants to sue the college student who is tracking her flights
I
and
bet she
tracking her
does.
carbon.
I bet she
Yeah,
does.
so they do care. It just depends on.
Well, they care that someone's pointing it out.
Was that the same one tracking Elon?
Oh,
that different?
maybe.
Well, someone brought that up, and they're like, "Oh, why can she do it, but Elon can't? Like, why are people rallying behind her, but thought that Elon was just an asshole?
Yeah.
Like when he wanted to do something about it."
There
That
is
was
a little
brought
bit of
up.
a cult behind Taylor. And I don't want
There
to,
is.
say anything bad because I don't want pitchforks at my house later. So it is kind of comical you can't talk shit about her at all. So
Yeah, it's wild how people just blindly get sucked into this like person worship.
Yeah.
Is really all it is. Like I couldn't believe I saw it and then I ignored it. I was like, okay, whatever, it's fine. But then they just kept on putting it there. And that class that Harvard's putting on now, it's a course on Taylor
So
Swift.
ridiculous.
Hundreds.
Really?
Yeah.
Harvard.
At Harvard, a course on Taylor Swift, and they're trying to find more teachers' assistants because they're having so many people that are trying to sign up for this class, hundreds of kids. So I'm like, all right, so you got Harvard, which should be like top of the food
Top of the
chain,
top.
as far as intelligence, what they pump out,
right.
education, and they're paying $75,000 a year to go there. And then meanwhile, these are probably the same motherfuckers that graduate out of there and then complain about a housing crisis and how they can't afford to buy a house. Like,
So I'm no Swiftie, so I'm not like sticking up for her. However, did you ever look into what I pushed back on when you first started talking shit about it? Like, are they talking about the way that she markets and like the way she makes money?
oh no,
Or is it just about Taylor Swift?
Oh,
'Cause
no, I
that's
saw
a big, that could be a very beneficial class for people that want to go into marketing or whatever. And they're
I mean, we
marketing
could-
it well by calling it Taylor Swift. So did you ever look into that?
I
What
did.
the
I
class
looked into
actually
it.
consists
I
of?
looked into it enough that there was a video. It was an interview of the teacher that was teaching the class, and there were sections of the video of the class being taught.
hmm
I also saw that, but that did not tell us what the
For-
class syllabus was.
You better watch out. She'll write a song about you.
It told me enough about the class that I'm like,
So you didn't see what the syllabus was.
oh, does the syllabus matter necessarily?
It's probably
It
marketing.
does.
It's
If it is
probably
marketing, like, which
It's
could
just
be,
all.
and they're doing a good job
No,
marketing
they were-
the
I mean,
class.
but at the same
The teacher said that the class was about the lyrics and her experience as an artist and how the artist was expressing themselves. It
okay,
wasn't
so
like
maybe it's
it wasn't like, hey, this is.
maybe it's part of the literature program.
I'm sure it is, but paying $75,000 a year to take that class, what exactly? What kind of benefits are you going to see out of that?
So when did Taylor come out? Like 10, 12 years ago? Something
Oh, it's
like
probably
that?
been more than
No,
that. It's
Yeah,
gotta be
15.
probably 18 years ago.
because she
Okay.
was like
Her first country
16
song
when
came out
because she came as a
probably
country.
18 years ago.
So she got found by somebody. Obviously, somebody said, "Hey, she has a lot of talent.
Mhm.
We need to take her under our wing and build her up." And all of a sudden, she's super successful. So, are you really marketing like Taylor Swift? Or are you marketing like a big organization
Yeah, do you have
that
the
helped
team?
Taylor Swift do all the marketing?
Yeah, it's business
So that's
marketing.
exactly what Fred said when I was trying to like push back at him a little bit, because somebody needs to push back on him
sure.
occasionally because
Please
it's
do.
fun. But that's what he said. But I said, but still, that could be a still beneficial class on
yeah.
what did this team do and how did they do it.
You
Yeah,
mean,
it's
hey,
not,
form a partnership with the NFL, and then
Yeah.
your boyfriend goes to the Super Bowl, and
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
It is weird that he came out and was like, vaccines. And then all of a sudden, Taylor got with him. And then she's been in every single. I don't watch football
Well, it's
much.
not
I'm
that
not even
weird.
going to watch Super
It's
Bowl,
not that
really.
weird
But,
that he came out. I mean, you heard how much he got paid.
oh,
right?
probably exorbitant amount.
It
I
was
imagine.
20. It was 20 plus million.
Really?
Yeah.
Easy
Yeah.
payday.
Yeah, I'm like,
Wow.
I was like, I heard that because that he came out and he was getting shit, right? The non-vax people were giving him shit, and that
Yeah.
whole conversation was happening. Well, then like a week and a half, 2 weeks later, it came out. Oh yeah, he got paid $20+ million to record that commercial
My
and be
God.
sponsored by Pfizer, and it was like, and everyone really flipped their shit, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that makes
That
sense.
makes
to me.
sense.
No, yeah,
if
that
I
makes
got
sense.
the vaccine, I would
Yeah,
pay $20 million to
I'll
be in
take
that
20 million.
commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would consider being in the face of that commercial, even though I didn't get the vaccine, because $20 million.
Do you think it worked?
The
The
vaccine?
commercial
No,
or the
no.
vaccine.
That's a different story.
That
but
is a-
I was like,
It
peace,
was.
I'm out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think more people got vaccinated because he did a commercial? Do you think
No,
the
I don't.
ROI on Pfizer was worth it to pay him $20 million?
I do not think so.
Okay.
But I will say there are still so many people coming into the office getting their 4th and their 5th booster.
I think
it is mind blowing to me how many
Yeah.
people are still coming in.
So
Like,
they've had COVID. I mean, right?
oh, they
To the
yeah.
certain extent, you get a vaccine, you've had COVID, but then you do get sick, you get infected, and then they get another booster. They're like, well,
'Cause
I had
it's gotta keep
COVID
you from
once,
getting
let
really
me get
sick.
another one just in case.
Yeah.
So you keep
And
from
it's
getting
like
really
age
sick.
range is like 20s to 80s. Like people are it's
Yeah.
still
I think at this point, like if people want to get a vaccine, go get a vaccine. I care
Yeah, go
less.
for it.
Yeah, I
You
don't
know,
care.
good for you. The part that I was mad about is like, well, if you don't get a vaccine, we're gonna go ahead and fire you from your job. So I'm glad that stuff's over. So that's pretty nice. But the funny thing to me these days is the people wearing the mask still. They're out in public, they're outside, they're still wearing a N95 or a cloth mask. And what you doing, bud?
Yeah.
as you're
outside,
walking
you all right?
outside alone.
Yeah. It's like, you all right? But yeah, crazy times. Glad it's
Yeah.
kind of finally settling down a little bit with that.
It seems to be. I think there's enough people that were like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like on plenty points of the spectrum, this doesn't make sense. What are we
Right.
doing?
Yeah.
Like, and then I think all of the actual information coming out that they tried to hide it really well.
Mhm.
But just the little things that chipped away, like Fauci's emails and these things that were, and Fauci admitting like, I don't know where that 6-foot thing came from. It was just
Right.
I don't know. It just kind of happened. And then people like just asking the questions of like, what are we doing here? If this was like this, it was the whole time it was trust the science. This is what we have to do. And then
Yeah.
later we find out that none of the things they were really implying
Right.
were true. That's what they always try to get around. Like, oh, well, we said these things, but really, that's not, we never said that definitively. And like,
Right.
it's like, no, you're people, you know what you're doing. Like you're an adult, when you're speaking ahead for something,
Right.
what you're trying to do and what you're implying. Like, let's not play games, folks.
Yeah.
I
So
think people are finally seeing that.
besides the vaccine, like all the other protocols that they issued, let's say 2 weeks to flatten the curve, we got to shut the country down, masking 6 foot. You go down and look at everything. It's like, which part worked? Which one of
Yeah.
these worked? If you get the vaccine, you won't get COVID. The progression of the whole thing, if you look at it, it's like none of that worked. And then at the end where the vaccine is like, well, the virus mutated. So
Yeah.
who knows? It could have worked if the virus didn't mutate. So did you not plan on the virus ever mutating? like because that's what viruses do, especially when you get vaccinated, right? So
Maybe it worked perfectly and created much more $100+ billion pharmaceutical companies.
that's what it was.
Yeah, there were some high profit ranges in there for those couple years.
Crazy.
It was insane.
Crazy. Like during COVID, I think they said it created how many more billionaires out there?
A lot.
A ton.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I question that too. It's like, all right, because I think there's something else at play there too,
Yeah.
where there's a lot more millionaires and billionaires, but the dollar's not worth a whole lot either.
Yeah.
Like the if you have a $1 billion of something and that dollar's not worth very much, well, it doesn't really help you. Like there's
Right.
countries like, which one is it? I can't remember now. I just had a brain fart. But in the last, I think it was like the last like 15 years, their fiat currency inflation has been like, it's like 1,500% or something like that.
Jeez.
So they're essentially like their biggest bills are worthless. Like you have to have stacks of their currency to even buy a loaf of bread because it's worthless. So it's like, all right, well, yeah, I'm a billionaire, but what's it buying me?
Yeah.
It's still buying me the same shit a millionaire had like 30 years ago.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So like we get hung up on, these numbers, but I think it's definitely the disparity between the haves and have-nots
Makes sense.
has expanded quite a bit.
Yeah.
At the same time. So it's like
The billionaire's the new millionaire and so forth a little bit to a
Yeah.
degree. I mean, $1 billion and $1 million, the difference between that is huge.
It is
You know,
huge,
it's
but
huge.
when you're talking about cost of living,
Yeah.
not really. It's minuscule, the difference there. Because
Right.
the difference between it's like the difference between somebody that makes $30,000 and $40,000. At that point, it's pretty big, but still pretty.
Yeah.
The cost of living is not great there, or what you're paying to live. What you have to offer, but it's that threshold of how much money do you have to live the American dream, right?
Yeah.
Like what's that these days? I don't know, but it's definitely a whole lot higher than what it used to be.
Yeah.
What's the American dream as well at the same time?
I've been looking at the housing market for a while now. And it's just like, houses are kind of more expensive for sure.
Well, that's true. That's very, very expensive.
And, it seems like to be middle class these days is definitely deemed something different. It's like, what do you have to be middle class? Is it 150 household income these days? Is it 170? Is that the entry point to middle class these days? Because that's what it seems like.
Yeah.
If you want to get a decent house, it's probably going to be 300,000, 350,000. You're probably going to be paying, $2,300, $2,500 a month just for your mortgage. And, the boomers, looking back at that, it's like, well, what are you doing? You could do
get to
better.
work.
Get to work. Yeah. It's like, what are you talking about? You bought your house for like 40 grand.
Yeah.
And so it is crazy.
Yeah, it's wild to me that more people don't see it. I think most people see it and they recognize, when you go to the grocery store, how much money you're paying for food. People kind of like recognize it and they bitch about it, but it seems to never really like sink in to people like why these things are happening. Like, oh, it's impossible to buy a house these days because of, I don't know why. I guess maybe that's, I don't understand like the whys, what people think. Like, why do you think it's so expensive to buy a house? Like, do you understand all of these precipitating events that led up to why we have, an 8% loan rate and houses or, even if you had the money to buy a $300,000 house 10 years ago, well, if you took a loan on it, the difference between that and what you pay for a $300,000 house now, it's massively different. What before, like with those lower interest rates, like you're looking at a $300,000 house that cost you $500,000, all 30-year mortgage, whatever, round numbers.
Yeah, now you're 900 to $1 million.
Yeah, and it's like now it's costing you 3 times as much for the exact same thing. It's like that doesn't end well.
No.
No,
I think we've got it in our head that, well, I guess younger people, where they're the Generation X, that they never gonna buy a house these days. They're gonna rent forever, and maybe that's the new way of the future. Is like we rent everything. I remember when I used
BlackRock
to use.
would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Use like computer programs like Adobe and all these things. You would buy the product. You would own it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh,
Annual
here's
subscription.
$11.99 a month, and I feel like to live is like $11.99 a month. With everything.
Mhm. Yeah, and I
So-
get, and the argument to that, the other half of that would also be, well, the rate at which technology moves.
Yeah.
They have to have developers on hand. They're constantly. They're always,
understand
always.
that.
You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that too. It's like, okay, I get it. Like the technology, because if you buy something now, technology wise, and it doesn't get updated for 2-3 years, let me know how well it works.
Yeah.
It won't.
I even saw
Yeah.
I even saw car manufacturers talking about subscriptions
Oh,
to unlock
yeah.
like, oh, you want air conditioning? It's an extra
Yeah.
$5.99 a
They're
month.
doing that already.
Because you're carbon tax.
BMW is doing that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw
So
BMWs.
yeah, if you
Wild.
want heated seats, that's another monthly subscription.
Yeah, that one
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Right. Like Tesla, I could see that a little bit. It's like, hey, if
Okay,
you want
yeah.
sport mode, you want to go a little faster, you're gonna pay us a little bit more. But I think that I don't know if that's a subscription or that's just like, give us $3,000, we'll unlock it for you.
Right.
Got you.
Which makes it
So-
because you have to develop the technological ability to do
Yeah.
those things. But like a heated seat, like the element's already in. All I gotta do is switch it on. What do you
Yeah.
mean? Like, what are you?
Is
Yeah.
it
Where's
just, from a manufacturing standpoint, is it easier for them to just include all those and then
Yeah.
profitability
Probably
to unlock
that's
it?
probably what it
Yeah.
is, right? It's like we
Just
make
a
it all the same.
standardized process, yeah.
Yeah.
You imagine your wife getting in the car in the winter and she like clicks her heated seats on.
Did
She's like,
you not pay the bill?
They're
this
not
month?"
turning on. Yeah, we had to make some
God.
cuts this month.
Oh, God. How dystopian does that sound?
Yeah. No warm butt for you.
Oh, that's how the civilization falls. One heated seat at a time.
That's right.
Or if you could pay for each one and the husband just paid for his and he's like,
Someone
should have given me
yeah.
that BJ,
Yeah.
not getting the seat.
Obviously, someone didn't pay their bill last month. Or it's paid for by your social credit.
Ooh.
Oh.
When you get the CBDC and sorry, you haven't been nice enough this month.
Yeah.
You don't get your
You had
ass
some extra
warmed up.
points on your social credit score this month. We're going to go ahead and give you the heated seats.
Yep.
Oh, not this month. We're taking
Yeah.
it away.
You see, you shared our president's opinion, so we'll bump you up a little bit. That's how, not Vietnam. That's how Korea works, right?
Yeah.
The better, the more you agree with the government, the better your life is, and if you don't, sorry.
Is this North Korea?
Yeah, North Korea.
Yeah.
China
China does that too,
yeah.
but like in North
Really?
Korea, they'll even go out to
Yeah.
like something happens where your uncle does something bad.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
sorry.
Generational punishment.
Yeah, generational punishment.
Yeah,
Oh,
and you
no
have
kidding.
to have the
Oh, yeah,
picture.
for sure.
You have to have
Yeah.
the picture in your house. Of,
Yeah, like basically like to shame them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what we're saying today could be used against our kids or grandkids
100%.
in the future.
Kyrie, if something happens and as our daughter grows older, they're gonna look at my Chronic Curiosity social media account and go,
Yeah.
"Oh, you are fucked."
Yeah.
yeah. You're working the mines, little girl. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. There's some rebel in you. We know it.
yeah, it comes in your blood. You can't get that out.
That's right.
Yeah, they'll do. Yeah, have you ever read the? You know who Yeonmi Park is?
No, I don't think so.
So she was a North Korean defector, basically.
Yeah.
Escaped when she was, I don't know, I want to say like 15 or something like that with her mom, through China and then down to South Korea and then eventually got over to the States. She does speaking and whatnot, just basically telling her account of what North Korea is really like. But she has a book. Can't remember what it's called. I need to get that back. I think Andy still has it. What's that called? It's really good, but it kind of runs through her accounts and basically just tells, if their uncle did something bad, if their grandpa did something bad, you get knocked down on the social ladder and that's it. There's no way for you to get back up. So if your family is doing something against the government, they just basically make you as low as they can. So it's an example for the community. So then the community takes part in, calling their neighbors out of, oh, this person said this thing or did this thing, or they're hoarding goats. They have goats that they're hoarding, and because it's complete communism where they took everything from people. They
Right.
said the government's feeding them. It's like, yeah, if you do something bad, your family has to denounce you, and if they don't like severely denounce you and like turn you in and whatnot, then it destroys their lives too. And
That's so scary.
yeah, it's terrifying.
so
That's how
scary.
they keep people under control because it's
Yeah.
like, well, I don't want to ruin my life, and so now I have to worry about policing
Yeah.
everybody around me, so I'm not connected with them.
I mean, turning in your neighbors like 1 degree, right? But turning in your family, like that's scary.
She has a second book out now, but the first one was In Order to Live.
Mm.
That's one you have. And then she has one out from last year, I think, while time remains.
Oh, okay, so she wrote on. Nice. But yeah, like if you see, like um, obviously, typically, those Eastern Asian descent
Mhm.
people are smaller, just naturally, genetically. But like if you look at like the size differences, I've seen some comparisons of like the people in North Korea because
Mhm.
they're basically starved. Like their average height and weight and things. Like if you're 5'5", like that's tall. Well, it's not necessarily just because of their genetics. It's like because they're malnourished their entire lives. So
Yeah.
she's like this like 5 foot tall, like 80 pound girl, like woman
Yeah.
now, and it's like she still looks like a little girl because her body just never grew. Because by the time she hit 16 and got out of the country, like
Yeah.
damage was already done. It's like that's wild too to think about. Like,
Did she come over here then?
yeah,
Okay.
she's in the States now.
Yeah.
But she travels around and does like speaking engagements
Yeah.
and stuff. Basically telling her story about like, hey, like America, be really careful about
Yeah.
some of the things that you're allowing your government to start controlling
It's a
because
slippery slope.
it's a slippery slope, and
Yeah.
and be careful about your own freedoms and the
Yeah.
freedoms of your neighbors and your family and your countrymen. That yes, it's America was made to disagree with people
Yeah.
and be able to have your own opinions and freedom of speech and all these different freedoms that we have here that are different than other places
Yeah.
that other countries just don't have. Yeah, we have some really fucked up and things like the pharmaceutical industry and
Mhm.
some of these different things we've talked about, but in the end, like the possibility for not being controlled by some tyrannical government or being controlled by everyone around you.
Yeah.
That's essentially what communism is in a
Right.
sense. Is particularly North Korea, where you have to worry about saying something bad. Like there's videos that you can find in scores online when like one of like an important person dies. What was it? Their last leader, can't remember what his name was now, had died. Like there's people out in the streets like frantically like throwing themselves around like crying because if they don't mourn hard enough,
Yeah.
then that's also going to get them in trouble with the
Oh,
government.
jeez.
And it's like, whoa, like this is
Yeah. Now you got to put on a show.
yeah, you have to put on a show for the government. It's like this
Yeah.
is so 1984. Like I don't know if you've read that book.
Yeah. A little
It's
bit
like
of it.
it's kind of it's like man, it's like
Dystopian.
yeah, it doesn't take much for those things to happen in
Yeah.
countries.
I think America's still great. I think we're kind of going down a little patch of history where it's like feeling kind of compromised by big business. And, does the president really run things or is it big business?
Yeah.
So I wonder if all these illegal migrants, are you guys too late to the party? Like you're jumping on our ship right when we could be going down.
Yeah,
A little
you're
bit,
jumping on a sinking ship here, but then I
Yeah.
also wonder. There's some of that too that I hate. I've really tried to stay away from this one, but more and more it seems like they like tried to make this happen. It's
It
it's
definitely
weird.
seems a little bit more planned, and I don't need to get too political, but with Biden and Trump, but Trump was trying to put up more walls, trying to do this, Biden's taking down the walls, take down the razor wire. It's
Yeah,
like,
and
why are we doing
Yeah,
this?
for
Like,
years at the beginning they called it was race. This is racist. This is bigotry.
Yeah.
Not like,
but there's borders for a reason, and everyone has borders.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's racist. I think it's a good control to make sure we're not having a lot of thugs and terrorists and stuff coming into your country that is undocumented. So I don't know. It's definitely fascinating what's going on, and I feel like maybe we can get something out of it. Maybe we live in a capitalist society. I can start a company and be like, hey, I'll take you down there and you can cross over. It's kind of like running with the bulls a little bit. If you're a thrill seeker,
Yeah,
you
I
pay
got
me
you.
$3,000. I'll take you down. You can run over.
The cartels are making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
Doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard some scenarios where that's like $10,000 a pop
Wow.
to basically make sure you get it. Like you can pay your way in.
Yeah.
I saw the other day too. Is kind of blew my mind. All of the NGOs
Mhm.
that are involved with not just providing assistance in like safety and like medical supplies for some of these caravans as they're going, but they're like it's documented. They're giving them like maps and
Yeah.
directions and hey, this is where you go, you get this, and then you go here, and then hey, this is how you get through the border.
Yeah.
And it's like this whole like laid out steps.
Yeah.
And it's like this what's the deal with this? Why are because at the core of it, it's still an illegal thing we're
Right.
doing. I think we should be bringing people into the country. Obviously, our birth rates are dropping,
Yeah.
which we need the people. But you would think we'd want to do it in a legal way
Mhm.
that we understand, one, that we do try to filter out those people that want to do the country harm, because they've caught a bunch of them too, documented that legit terrorists that just get out of prison from halfway across the country,
Yeah.
and then a month later they get caught in the border. Like that's a thing that's happening.
Mhm.
Yes, there are like women and children that don't have any opportunities that would be great to be able to bring them in here so they can start a life and do those things. But there's still like other things happening at the same time.
Yeah.
I saw an example the other day. Someone was talking about it where even if it was 1 million every year that we brought in, great. I think it's been like 10 plus in the last 3 years, but
Mhm.
even if it was 1 million a year, it was a guy who presented it. I think it was with gumballs, and he started displaying how many millions by each gumball of impoverished people live in each of these countries.
Yeah.
And he just started like, this is India, this is Africa, this is, and he just started stacking them up, covered like a whole table, and then he was like, and we take 1 million every year, and it's like, okay, that's great that we're doing this, but why aren't we trying to actually, instead of doing what we typically do to other countries, which seems to be just bomb them all the time now, why aren't we like going into these countries and putting the money and effort that we are into helping them build up their country,
Right.
helping them to secure it from lawlessness
Yeah.
and the terror that some
Yeah.
of these things have. And we like to say that we're doing that, but it always seems that, war on terror, all these things, and all we're doing is going and just blowing stuff up.
Yeah.
And then we leave.
Right.
And it just seems to be a kind of a military money-making deal that they have. We blow stuff up, and then we go in, we pay Berkshire Hathaway and all these companies to fix it, and then we put a new leader in, and we leave, and we do it to another country in 5 years. It's like, that's not helping them. It's just regime changes and
Mhm.
punishing countries instead of, I don't know. The whole thing is just, there's obviously,
Yeah.
money, right? But there's just so much to all of it. But I realize there's people just, they see one thing and they go, well, this
Yeah.
is good, this is bad, this is what it is. Usually things are like what you see or what you think is like 1% of what the thing is,
Oh, absolutely.
and it's like,
It's like all those things out there. It's like, what is the Patriot Act? It's like they make all these bills and they put the Patriot Act. We're going to
Yeah.
spy on you. Like, what?
Yeah,
How's
yeah.
that patriotic?
yeah. And also we're going to put dog laws in here while we're
Yeah.
at it. Like what? Like, and we're going to put like laws against how you can, like, that's always the one that killed me is the bills that they make, right?
Yeah.
They're thousands of pages thousands of pages long. They have more stuff in there that has nothing to do with
Right.
whatever they're trying to do. And what's the game? Is it really as simple as it looks? Like, you guys
Right.
are just like, what are you doing? Because I just don't quite understand what we're getting out of our tax dollars anymore. Like, I don't,
Yeah. Neither do I. Especially when a lot of it goes overseas. Apparently, it's like, hey, we have record inflation right now, but we're going to go ahead and send billions and billions of dollars that we should have here to help you guys, to Ukraine or to Israel or to places like that. When
How else are you going to launder money?
yeah, well, absolutely. I think we all know that, but I think there's a lot of people out there that don't think that way, and they think, no, we need to help these countries, and they need our help, and well, we might need some help too. I don't know. Hopefully there is some good use from it, but I don't see it, and there's no transparency. There's no, this is where the money's getting allocated, and hey,
That's a tricky one,
here's
right?
everything. If they would lay it out and say, hey, country, this is what we're doing for you. This is why we're doing it.
right.
Instead of it's just bullshit.
Well, they'd have to be able to like keep their books first.
I was going to say, no
Yeah.
transparency or accountability.
They don't
Yeah.
even know where their money's going. Well,
Yeah.
it's maybe they do, and they just don't like to tell us. But what was it? Every single year, was it the FBI or whatever? They like fail their audit by like billions of
Yeah.
dollars. The Pentagon.
Every year.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, we failed our audit by like billions of dollars. We
Yeah.
don't know where it all went. What? What do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
how does that even happen?
We're
Like,
ta-
it's like
But we
the
just
IRS
hired how many agencies to come or people to come make sure that like the citizens are paying their taxes. Like, how many jobs did they create for that?
86,000.
Yeah, over the next 5 years or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The IRS knows when I missed $5 on my tax return, but the Pentagon misplaces billions, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, whoops.
How else
Better
are
luck
they,
next
how else-
time.
How else are they going to pay for the misplaced money?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 50% of your wage goes to taxes. Something
It's
like
pretty
that.
cause.
You know, when you
It's
start
a-
buying things,
Oh,
it's like
yeah,
it's
it-
just not
when you
tax.
use your
It's not
money.
income tax. It's
Yeah.
when you use your money.
Yeah,
it's
you
taxed.
30% of it's income tax or
Yeah.
whatever it is, and then you get taxed on everything.
else.
Yeah, I always love it. The industry I work in, I used to interact with people, the public, a lot. And they always would be like, "Well, this is my property. I blah this that whatever." I'm like,
Kinda.
it's not. Yeah, it's your property until the government or somebody that the government deems more important than you says, "Hey, we're doing this with your property." Then it's no longer your property. Like,
Yeah.
it can't be your property if you're paying rent on it. You're like, oh, well, if you own your property, you're not paying rent. It's like, well, tell the IRS that.
Yeah.
You're paying property taxes, aren't you? That's rent.
A shit ton more for Wayne County recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, guess what? You don't own anything. You know, people make the joke with, was it Klaus Schwab from the
Darth Vader.
Yeah.
where he's like, oh, you'll own nothing and be happy. Well, technically, none of us own anything right now anyway. If somebody can come and take it from you legally, do you really own it? No.
I wonder how he said that. Like, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. I don't think it was like that. I think it's like you will own nothing and you will be happy. You know, it's like it's something more like that. I feel like
it does kind of feel
like,
that way sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just funny seeing it all. I've tried to step back from, because during COVID it was like, oh, I was way too into all of following all the things. I still follow them, but it's like you realize like this whole monkey fucking a football thing with governments and geopolitical events and politics, and it's always been a disaster.
I think it was a good wake up call for a lot of us, but now it's just tired. You know, all of it's just tired. Like, all right, I'm tired of hearing about it. I know it's corrupt. I know it's all corrupt.
Yeah.
It's all about money and moving on.
Yep. That's why you do the ice baths.
Yeah. Clear the head.
Focus on your health.
I'm just waiting for the next psyop because there's something coming around the corner.
Yeah.
It's election season, so I think this year's going to get pretty gnarly.
Yeah,
I
don't see how it won't.
Yeah. I just hope something not so destructive, you know, but something's coming down the pipe, I'm sure.
Yeah, hopefully it's something that can be like partially ignored.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't have to volunteer with this. All right. Like,
yeah,
you got to do it for your community. Everyone has to do it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, man, we almost need to, sometimes I feel like playing into it just enough to where it's like, if the government, if we're doing some kind of psyop or propaganda, all right, go ahead and put it out there and then we'll play along with you. So that way you don't get worse. Like, so you don't make these, whatever you're doing worse for us. Like, we'll play along. Can we just play along now and go back to my life and realize that you guys are fucked. You always will be. I don't know if we can do anything about it at this point.
Yeah. It'd be great if we can get society to a point where none of us pays attention to it at all. Like, they just like, this is the new thing on MSNBC. And they're like, meh, like no one cares. Like, and then I think their power then is like, they don't have it anymore. If no one cares about it.
Well, the terrifying thing though, too, is also coupled with that is if nobody cares about anything at all and they don't understand what's happening in politics and whatnot, then it leaves room for somebody to come in and really do some fucked up shit and already set us on that trajectory before we even realize it. I revisited the World Wars. There was that documentary a couple years ago. I think was it Jeremy Renner did the voiceover, the narrating. I think it was just called the World Wars. Phenomenal documentary. I think it was like a 8-part series or something like that. But it followed pre-World War One, like Stalin, Hitler, Churchill, Roosevelt, and their experiences and lives through World War One and Two, and like pre and post, and like during and in between. So like they did a really good job of like kind of laying out the whys of how the things happened. Because most of the time you watch like a documentary on like one of the world wars, it's naturally Holocaust is a big one.
Yeah.
But then it's like the battles and kind of the strategic things, bullet points. But it was really neat to see like follow that from a human aspect of these leaders and like what shaped all of these decisions and the path that got the world into this mess. And it was like, oh, this was kind of cool. It makes more sense because you can understand the human pathology behind it. It's like, okay, now it makes sense that we it's also a little disheartening because it's like, all right, we're always going to try to blow each other up.
Yeah.
Because we just hate each other too much for whatever reason.
Did you hear that 20% of Gen Z believe that the Holocaust is made up?
I did see that.
Really?
That it didn't actually happen?
I did
Wow.
see that.
I heard that. I had to look it up, but
Yeah.
it does say.
Did they cross poll them to see how many think that the Earth is flat?
Touche. Yeah, that's a good
Touche.
point.
I don't think they probably did.
I did hear that, which I don't know. That seems.
Well, Kyrie didn't
not
know what
happen.
the Holocaust was. She's 12, and they haven't went over that yet. So
I think it was more the term that she wasn't familiar with. I think she's familiar with kind of generally what happened, but I don't think she was familiar with like what that term meant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And I wonder what they mean by did not happen. Like, no, we did not throw Jews into an oven and kill people. That didn't happen, or what part of the
Yeah, I think they,
Holocaust
like-
did not happen?
Yeah.
They
it's
say
like-
nearly a quarter of young Americans believe the Holocaust didn't happen or it has been exaggerated. So it wasn't as bad as what we.
yeah.
They're
It
obvious.
wasn't 12 or how many people? I can't remember how many people died during the World War alone, but just for the Holocaust, it was like 12 plus million.
A lot. Yeah,
A lot of people.
definitely. I mean, and go back to your thing about 1 million coming into the country. I think that's a lot of people. When you look at Worcester being 30,000, and when you have 1 million each year, it's like, where are they going? What's that allocate to every city in the United States? Like 1,000 or something?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Like,
I know there was the statistics I looked at where it was so 11. I think we're like 10 to 11 million people that have come in illegally that they know about. Essentially, that we can kind of generally track these 11 million people in the last 3 years. That's more than like if that were its own state, it would be like the 9th most populated state in the entire entire United States. So like, that's a lot of fucking people.
a lot of people.
A lot of people that shouldn't technically be here at this point because they're illegal. Like, and that's the hard part. Like, I would never expect to just go to another country and not get in trouble for just showing up.
Yeah.
Like, just breaking into someone's house. Like, but if you let me in, like, that's fine. Like, I think that should be I think our immigration system is pretty broken because I've talked to a handful of people that are trying to get citizenship and trying to do these things, and it's not easy. So I get it, but
Easy. Yeah.
11 million people in 3 years, we can't physically even process that.
No. And it's not just not getting in trouble. It's, hey, we're going to put you up in a hotel permanently.
Yeah,
for a
the
while.
taxpayers are going to pay for you now.
Yeah, we're going to get you a job working for the police.
Send
or
them to
it's
New
like,
York.
what?
That's
Send them
the
to Chicago.
Yeah.
that's what you said. Like California using non-citizens for police departments
Yeah.
and things. It's like, what are we doing?
We're giving
here?
them a gun.
Yeah, like
Here you
wait,
go.
like
You can legally carry this now.
oh,
Would you like to vote?
yeah, which it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I think there's part of that people just don't like. Where are all the gun people that want to take guns away or that want more laws on guns? Well, it's like we're just going to hand out guns to people that shouldn't even be citizens, and now are we letting non-citizens arrest citizens? Like that's
crazy.
weird, right?
Yeah.
That seems a little weird. I think they're doing the same over. It was a European country. I know they're playing with the same kind of idea, but it's like so confusing. I don't understand the logic behind it, but
There's a lot of comedy about it, though. Like, like Texas. Like, oh, you guys are a sanctuary state. Like, okay, we'll ship them up to you. And all of a sudden, they're getting tons in New York. And it's sad. I mean, because I imagine New York residents are like, dude, there's just, I'm just usually go down to this sub shop, and now I can't even go down there anymore because it's just so polluted with people. And I'm not saying people are bad or everyone that's coming into the country is bad, but like it does. There's only a certain amount of resources.
the
per
infrastructure.
community. Yeah, it just doesn't support it. So I don't know.
It's like, and at some point, somebody had to call their bluff.
Yeah.
Because I watched that whole thing play out where all the sanctuary cities were saying, hey, this is a sanctuary city. Like we welcome people here. And, Texas is just a bunch of bigots.
Right.
And then Texas goes, okay, well, start taking them because we got too many. We can't take care of these people. we don't have the infrastructure
Right.
to give these people what they need. So here you go.
I mean,
And then within months it was, we can't do this. We don't have
Yeah.
the infrastructure for this. No shit. Nobody
Yeah.
does. That's the whole point. Like,
I think a lot of people out there just don't see it because they're in a bubble. They just live in a bubble. What if 15,000 came to Worcester? Half
Yeah.
of the population of Worcester just showed up. And It's
Yeah.
just like, well, how do we house them? Is rent cost going to go through the roof because it's demand? Like food supply? Are we shipping more food in? Can we get that much food in Worcester that quickly? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of variables. It's just like, I don't know what would happen, but there would be chaos.
Yeah.
I'm
And that's
sure of that.
happening in places. I can't remember that. I think it's a Italian island. I can't remember the name of it now, but at one point, it was like a month or two ago, there were boats of people showing up from, I can't remember where, but they were illegally immigrating to this island. And within 2 days, they had doubled the
Mhm.
population of the island. It's like, well, you know why there weren't twice as many people there? Probably because the infrastructure couldn't support them. So now you're just going to destroy that entire, like, there's got to be some solutions to these
Yeah.
things. It isn't just, oh, well, it seems like it's kind of, well, if I can't have it, nobody can. Or if,
Yeah.
if tax the billionaires, I get it, but it doesn't seem like the money you're taking from them, you're doing a whole lot of good with anyways. So you can see how people get tainted and jaded from these things. It's like, there's got to be some middle ground, decent ideas that we can start making some sort of progress instead of
Yeah.
tossing this football around.
And I don't know if they got people beat down right now. They just don't want to talk anymore. But like, there should be more people talking about this. To even if you're a climate extremist, why aren't you talking about
Because
this?
Donald Trump's running for president.
Yeah.
Because that's all I hear
possibly.
about.
Yeah. Touche.
It's scary. It's like,
But-
yeah, he is kind of scary, but we got a lot of other things that are like
there's
real
so many
problems.
other problems. Like if they do come into a community like Worcester and there's 15,000, like think of the resources, think of the climate, think of the ecosystem that we're disrupting right there. And if we're doing that on a grand scale, shouldn't people be talking about? I don't know.
Are you saying we
It's
should
scary.
start a militia to prevent that?
What? No.
Yeah,
Jeez.
you can't.
Now we're on a list.
Yeah, there's.
Oh, bro, we were already. On
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, there's.
We were
states
talking about
that's
taxes
illegal.
earlier. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw somewhere too just recently that they made they changed the law that, what was it? It was, or they prefaced around the law that was like preventing. They brought a law in preventing the organization and like practice of military type exercises
Mhm.
for the private citizens. So I'm like, wait a minute, like all these people saying the Second Amendment was for militias. It doesn't mean you should be able to carry a gun. That's not what that means. It's for a well-organized militia, which a militia is like, a military type group, not just citizens, which I
Yeah.
disagree with. But now they're going so far as to, all right, citizens, yeah, you can't even make a militia. Well, that spits directly in the face of the Second Amendment, if
Yeah.
you really get down to it. So like, it's not hard to understand why people see this playing out and go, well, this is concerning, because this kind of feels like what Britain did to us when we first kind of came over here.
Mhm.
Tim
Yeah.
Kennedy shared that on his Instagram, and it's not there anymore.
Okay.
That's where I saw it.
Oh,
If
I'm
we're
sure they
not doing a
probably-
militia, can we at least dump some fucking tea in a
Yeah.
harbor somewhere?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah.
Just like a few cents on the dollar? Like just we're gonna dump
Yeah.
tea over a few cents, and now fast forward, look at the tax.
Yeah,
Now,
how
and
many-
that was supposed to be temporary, right? Like when
Yeah,
we
so
started
is
the income tax, that
Yeah,
was
so
like
is
during-
income tax. Yeah, that's supposed to be temporary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing
For the wars.
I don't know. I think if you get a militia, it totally goes right over to your terrorist organization. That's how they
Naturally.
deem
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's like we're not terrorists. We're looking out for the best interest of the country, and we are strong men that look out for our neighbors. Like
Too much toxic.
Whoa,
yeah,
way too
yeah,
much.
toxic. Yeah,
Yeah, and then because there are some of
drink your
those
soy.
right. There's some of those people in those groups that tend to lean certain ways and have some different propensities of ideas, which I get, but like you can see how aggressively some of those people are attacked by the institution or mainstream, whatever it is.
Mhm.
That's like the surprising, like, oh, like they're really going hard on some of these groups, like that what was it, Enrico guy who is the head of who is it? They were not the folks that look like feds dressed up in khakis and
Oh yeah, yeah.
but not the bad boys, the something boys.
Oh,
Proud Boys?
The Proud
Proud
Boys.
Boys. Yeah.
Yeah, like that dude got thrown in prison for, what was it, like 7 years for the January 6th stuff. He wasn't even there.
Oh wow.
He wasn't even like physically there. And he got thrown in prison for like, I think it was like 5 to 7 years or something like that.
Because he kind of organized the group a little bit.
He was the president of the group. But
Yeah.
but the same thing with like Governor not Hochul. That's New York. Who's a good governor of Michigan. I see her name's right there. Whitmer. There was a plan, if you remember, during the Trump's election of they had this story where these Trump zealots were trying to
all two of them that attended.
these Trump zealots were trying to kidnap Governor Whitmer, and they were talking about killing her and whatever, right? Well, there was like a group of like a dozen of them. Well, all but 2 of them had some kind of connection to a 3-letter agency. They were informants. They were this, that, whatever. It was like literally the entire it was you busted 2 people.
Yeah.
And the rest of them were like, and the government agents were the ones that made it possible for like these plans to come up, and it was just used for propaganda purposes. And that people just skimmed over that one real quick.
Yeah.
And it was like, what's going on here, folks?
Are there real racists out there? Sure.
Oh,
do they come out in packs? Maybe.
Yeah.
I guess. Probably. Are we used to seeing it? No. But like, I think it should be obvious. The people with the khakis and the shirts and the face mask.
They look like a bunch of feds.
It's like, yeah, you guys are feds.
Yeah.
And I think the left, the right, just people in general should look at that. Like, just look at it. Why are they doing that?
Yeah.
Are they trying to encourage this separation of us getting together and being like, let's find some common ground here. Look what the fuck they're doing.
Mhm.
You know, we need to stand up to this, and they're obviously trying to keep us separated. And
Shaking up the red ants
Yeah,
and the black ants.
You sound
Yeah.
like an enemy of the state, good sir.
yeah,
That's like Mike
Never-
Glover. He's been on the
Oh yeah.
Rogan podcast, and he's listed under multiple like terrorist lists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An
And
ex Navy
all he
SEAL
does
is
is
just
he's like an entrepreneur. He helps people prep
yeah,
from like gardening prep, like seeds and canning and stuff, to like how to like take care of yourself,
and
like
handle
Yeah.
firearms in a
jujitsu, firearms, things
responsible
like
way.
that. And they said that he is basically an enemy of the state, and he's listed under multiple.
yeah.
And he was like, what, a SEAL for 10 years or
He was
something
a-
like
Oh
that?
yeah,
He was
Yeah.
an ODA guy. He was an SF guy.
Oh, okay.
So
special forces. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Well, I think Tim Kennedy is also on that list.
oh, I'm sure he is
You
for
know?
sure.
You're a strong male that does jujitsu and has firearm training classes, and you know,
Yeah, this guy must be a head case, right?
I think anyone that cites the Bill of Rights or anything like that, it's like you're automatically on a list.
That's
It's like-
weird how that happens, right? When people start like, oh, someone that wants to start claiming and talking about the Constitution and Bill of Rights and,
Yeah.
and claiming those as a citizen, like, oh, that's
Yeah.
right wing. What? Like that?
yeah,
You're like a right wing fascist, an extremist. Like, wait a minute, like how? I thought this is like what was our country is built on. I don't get it.
right.
It's weird. The labels though, but I think it really goes back to manipulation of thoughts, right? That's
Yeah.
really at the core of it. Same thing. Accusing somebody of rape
Mhm.
as a teenage boy, or as a man, a teenage boy through those years. Like that's one thing that like fathers need to teach their sons. Like, hey, guess what? You better not put yourself in these scenarios, because guess what? It doesn't matter. A lot of times it doesn't matter if you did or not, if you did anything wrong or not.
Mhm.
If someone says, hell, that guy raped me, well, your name's screwed. Like
Yeah.
it's tainted regardless. That's how it is.
Right.
So it's like, all right, how can we not put ourselves in these situations? Because it doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah.
If someone puts that title on you,
Yeah.
they were throwing the word Nazi around a lot the last couple of years, where it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
do you guys understand what Nazis were? Like, maybe we need to revisit,
Yeah.
Well,
our
clearly,
history.
people
They
don't
don't.
think that actually
They think
happened.
they were fake. Yeah, probably the
It
same
wasn't
people.
as bad as
Yeah.
it really was.
The people probably calling people Nazis are the people that don't think it was real.
Right.
Like, you don't understand what you're saying here. Like, and the scary part is most people could have been a Nazi.
Yeah.
I think that's what they don't like to think about that too.
Sure.
If you understand how that happened and how most people like became into the Nazi, like that party.
Mhm.
I mean, it was a political movement at first,
Absolutely.
and
It's
then all of a
popular.
sudden, yeah, because it was like, hey, this makes sense. And then all of a sudden, Hitler's tentacles and what his personal, ideologies got in there, and then he worked it into the minds of people. Some people believed it, and some people found themselves just in the position that they were there. Now all of a sudden the things start taking a turn. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Am I just going to voluntarily switch sides and be like, yeah, torture me and my family?
Yeah.
A lot of people are just going to go along with it. Like,
well, look how we go along with things in the last 5 years. I think there was probably a lot of propaganda to be like, no, we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
This is the right thing to do. And I mean, he was such a good speaker, I guess, terrible person. But when he was on the podium and getting people riled up and, he had a way with his words, I suppose. A lot of bad came from it though. And it's funny that, Christopher Columbus, when we look at him and, he such a terrible person, came over here and slaughtered all these people, and yeah, absolutely terrible then. But that the same people that say that can go, oh, the Holocaust never happened. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. And there's always more to the story, right? Like there's always, and people don't like, it's when people take this one position and talk about this one point, it's like,
right.
I have a hard time understanding or listening to what you're saying because you're only focused on one thing. Yeah. Was Christopher Columbus a bad person? Probably. He was probably a real shithead. Yeah. But what was the percentage of, people back then that were trying to really help the world out? How many Mother Teresas were there, whatever it might be, that were really good-hearted people? Well, not that many, because the further you go back, the harder it is to survive as a human being. So people were fucking rough. Like, guess what? When Christopher Columbus came over here, he wasn't the only one slaughtering people here.
Yeah.
There was battles and fights amongst the world constantly, all the time. Like, there's just because someone's good or bad doesn't mean that they're all good or all bad. There's always a mix there.
And I think you have to measure it per era. Really, it's like in this era, that's kind of how they acted. In that era of the 1800s, we had slaves and everybody had a slave, and that's how they acted. Does that make them good people today? I don't know. Like, because everyone had a slave at that point. But is slavery good? Absolutely not. But it just seems like as we go on, even like medieval days when, beheading people, it's like, but people would watch hangings.
Yeah,
and
just because you were accused, no evidence.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a twisted world, but I think there's always going to be yin and yang. There's always going to be war. There's always going to be people fighting. And I think that's good and evil. I think we're always going to be battling back and forth with that,
Yeah, we have to, in a sense. I mean, I think it's really neat to think about our ability to do so.
Yeah.
Animals, they have an instinct. They go by, they're not thinking about this law or code or what's right or wrong, right? They're just surviving. They're just going. They're doing their thing,
right?
Which is kind of fantastic. I like.
Hold on, did you just say animals don't have emotions?
Uh-oh. I know my dog does.
I'm just playing.
I'm just saying they're living
maybe not cats, but definitely a dog.
They're living by a different set of rules. And it kind of makes me laugh when people try to bring like the without going too far, but like the real animal lovers, where it's like, look, like you can't, eating animals and all these things is, cruel and all this different stuff. But it's like, okay, I get where you're coming from. But if I don't eat that animal, another animal's going to eat that animal.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, there's difference, whatever. But we have the capability, like our biggest problem is that we have this understanding that we're conscious beings and we can think about our things. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like that to me, like we're living on this rock, interacting with each other and seeing all these things occur. Is also kind of why it blows my mind of watching people really get sucked into drama that doesn't matter, like TV show drama and things like that, where it's like, man, you really like good movies and TV shows? Have you ever watched politicians talk to each other and understand what they're doing in our, like right now in our own country, and like people interact and like these world leaders and understand all these dynamics that are occurring around us constantly?
Yeah.
Pretty fucking interesting and pretty wild. And then you realize some of the things they're doing. It's like, oh, this is a TV show that's way more fucked up than some of the TV shows I've ever watched.
Yeah.
If you understand all the pieces and parts moving on, it's like we're living in this wild thing that we can understand that's here. It's like, how do we deal with that? How do we navigate
Right.
that? Like, this is a pretty wild experience. I don't have to worry about just getting eaten and eating.
Yeah.
Like, there's things going on I can think about. Are we interdimensional? Are we getting aliens from outer space coming in? Are they coming in from parallel universes? Are they under the water? Is it just our government just making things up? Is it us that's got these UFO? Like,
Right.
all these things that they sound silly, but the implications of are like UFOs. What's going on there? There's
Yeah.
something going on that nobody's explaining, and whether they can't explain it or won't explain it, hey, maybe we should look into that.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, throughout history, we know the Earth has been impacted by massive catastrophes. We're flying through space. There's asteroids and comets and things zipping around us all the time. We feel like we have enough evidence to understand that dinosaurs were extinct because a giant something smashed into the Earth.
Right.
We've seen it in our lifetime of things getting close to that. We have volcanoes, all these different things.
Right.
Evidence of massive floods 12,000 years ago with these ancient civilizations that we can't even that are dated well beyond 13,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
There might be something bigger going on here, folks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why aren't we like, let's try to figure out how not to get smacked by an asteroid, because that might be a kind of an end gamer there for us.
Right.
Instead of, I don't know, just some of the little shit that
I think for the most part, everyone's looking for their next dopamine hit,
Mm.
in general. And it's easy to hop on some kind of show that gives you a bunch of drama, and you don't have a lot of drama in your life. You're like, yeah, that feels good. I'm going to laugh at them, make myself feel better for my life. And sometimes they're not. I think there's people that don't have that adventurer soul that wants to broaden their expansion of how they look at life and how they look at asteroids and stuff like that. That's far more interesting in my opinion. Even the thought of aliens is there actual ghost here? Who knows? I think we get caught up in they do that. They do that with food. They do that with entertainment. It's all bread and circus to keep you distracted. But if I had kids right now, I think I would be really looking into why everything works the way it does with politicians, and shouldn't we unify a little bit more? Because my kids, I don't want them to have a shittier life than I did. Did my dad have a better life than I do? I don't know. I don't think so. Did they have a cheaper life? Yeah, absolutely.
It's a little less expensive.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. Yeah, I don't envy what's coming in like 2050, 2060 if it keeps the same trajectory. I think people are waking up to everything, the whole economic forum to be like, you will own nothing and be happy. I don't think that's good for anybody, So
Yeah, it's definitely interesting I've thought about that. It's with a bit of apprehension. It's like, where are we heading? Because the outlook doesn't look real great.
Right.
But there's some things that can happen that could turn it around. So I'm hopeful. But the economic outcome, if you understand the history of fiat currencies, we are on a very, very tried and true trajectory. And all of them that have not turned out well, they're on the path that we're on. Every single, you look at monetary currencies, every single one that's been on the path we're on, it's not really around anymore. So it's like, all right, that's no good. But at the same time, did you see Elon finally, they put the Neuralink in for the first human?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. I'm like,
I didn't hear much about it.
Yeah.
I
don't know how he said. It was it was like
Yeah.
a day or two later, I heard that patient seemed to be doing well. I haven't looked
Yeah.
into it after that, but I was like, all right. So here we go.
Yeah.
Like, Cyborg City. Here we come, right?
I mean, we're already kind of cyborgs, right? We
Yeah.
carry around this phone, so anything we want at any point in time, we could look it up or do something, take pictures. We are kind of a cyborg these days. Not injected in us, and that's a different level. But
Yeah.
there's so many funny things that are going around. Obviously, a comedian showed that he got basically implanted with Neuralink, and he was like speaking like Elon and like speaking really fast and like yeah. So there is some funny things that are coming, but would I do it? Absolutely not. When are they going to start injecting ads to that? So you're like, hang on, I'm listening to an ad real quick here.
Oh,
like,
I never even thought about that. It's eventually you're gonna have to
I
pay a
gotta upgrade to
subscription.
the other model so I don't get the ads anymore inside my brain.
Oh, I've never even thought about that.
Because they're already saying that we get, I don't know, when we're sleeping, we're getting ads somehow implanted in our dreams. And you could look into that. I'm just giving you a bullet point. I forget how that all works, but like there's something about it there.
I'd take ads over some of the fucked up shit I dream about. Just give me an ad for something semi-pleasant and I will be solid.
Just extended call warranties.
O'Reilly.
Just
Dang it.
That's terrible.
Yeah, you wake up singing that song.
Oh god.
That was the ad last night when I was dreaming.
Yeah, that sounds like a good Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all terrifying because like you
I
can
love
see,
them though.
Yeah, they're great if you've watched them, but they're terrifying because there's so much. Oh, that could totally
That
happen.
could happen.
Like that situation around that, like that's totally I don't see it not happening in the future at this point. Like some of those things because if he's fixing eyeballs and paralysis and some of this stuff like that with AI the way it's going, like this is going to be we're going to see some really wild stuff, and our kids, if they make it that far, are going to really see some mind blowing shit.
Yeah.
It's called dream implantation, and it works by playing sounds or using smells to prime your brain. And advertisers are using this to reach you while you're sleeping.
That's not surprising. Well, you see some of the crazy...
You're a marketing guy, aren't you, Joe?
Yeah,
Is this what you're doing?
Absolutely.
You're just trying to figure it out. That's why you know about this.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Caught me. She got me.
Real quick, while I have this pulled up, I did find a study that was from Stanford that has females and the being vegan. So it was for I guess it's highlighted on a Netflix special, but they took 22 sets of female twins. This article is just about 2 sets of twins. So for a baseline, they had to watch a documentary on birds while their genital temperature was being measured, which can indicate their arousal. So that was their baseline. And then they watched porn of their own choosing. Again, their genital temperature was measured. Then they went on a vegan diet for 8 weeks, and then it was all tested again. And the lowest increase was 212%.
And so that's just genital temperature, though. So
which they're saying is
they're equating it to sexual arousal.
Yeah,
but they're still watching their chosen porn while they're doing it. So it doesn't mean they're walking around with necessarily increased.
So it's during.
So
it's during
the exposure to
but Stanford says they do not understand how exactly the vegan diet is doing that.
Yeah, but it's just increasing the temperature how are they equating the temperature with sexual arousal
or libido or like how they're feeling if they're hornier that day?
Yeah, that's just my coochie's hotter.
Yeah.
Well, way down yonder on the Chattahoochee.
You know what I mean?
I feel like if I was sick or getting ready to die, your body is immediately going, you need to procreate. You need to, yeah. You know, and I'm not saying like a vegan diet you're going to die off of, but I'm also not saying it's the healthiest diet out there.
Yeah, I wonder how they equate
Were there any outliers that had heated genitals when they just watched the birds?
No, they didn't say, but he did say, this guy, Christopher, said not only was this study groundbreaking, but the twins were also a riot to work with.
Huh.
End quote.
Yeah.
Sure
but 22 of them were in this study for switching to the vegan diet, but it looks like only 4 were tested with their genital temperature.
Huh.
This just says temperature level is a known marker of sexual arousal. That's why they used that.
How do you think they took the temperature? Is it like one of those
you had your
kitchen
thermometer?
Genital clamps for sure.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think like if there was like, all right, we'll put them on a diet and then study their partners.
Okay.
That they have.
Yeah.
So And then if the vegans started banging uglier dudes and more of them, I'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
that's an increased sexual arousal because they're like, fuck it, I gotta get this thing on.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
say like
Yeah.
did they have
But just-
increased amounts of sex.
I don't think you're getting funding for that.
No, I'm not getting funded for that one. That would make more sense to me though. Like, oh, like this girl like went from having sex like once a month with like 7s and 8s
Yeah.
to like
She's at 4s.
as at 4s once a week.
She doesn't care.
That is increased libido.
Everybody
Yes.
gets vegetables. Yeah, so that's what that study
Interesting.
was. Yeah, so
I have questions, but
Yeah.
thanks for clearing that up though.
Don't you think there are other ways of measuring? I mean, just a few. Just I don't
I mean,
know.
I,
Like,
just,
I would
I
think,
feel
like-
like a,
isn't it
just
like
a
blood
very,
results that
yeah,
you can
the
get?
blood
I think just a
results,
very
heart
honest
rate.
survey could
Yeah.
probably do
Well,
that
Most,
more.
yeah.
And maybe I know that they chose their own, but maybe that's just not what they were feeling that day. You know, did they get to change halfway through? Maybe that
Yeah.
their porn selection
Who
just
funded
wasn't
this
really-
study?
Yeah.
I would
They
like
said
to
it was
like take it all the
Stanford,
way
but-
back to the root of like, and who was the donors? And
Yeah.
was it Bill Gates trying to push his plant protein?
Well, probably.
I don't know, the whole plant thing. I like plants, but sometimes
But yeah, so do I. I like
sometimes
salads.
they can be toxic for you too. Like that's kind of what plants do.
It's our
So-
natural defense, you know.
And I think there's too. I've always, I guess it makes sense because people are people. But like the groups of people that are diehard, animals are our friends, right?
Mhm.
We don't eat our friends. I get it. But then like it's funny when you see some of those people that they're like, well, plants don't matter because plants aren't conscious. Well, how do you know that? Like plants do some crazy shit that we
Mhm.
can't explain.
Right.
So, like, it's just because that animal's more like you can connect with it a little more than the plant that doesn't necessarily have all the same traits as you. Like, I've always struggled with understanding that too.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't there like people out there that are like, oh, we can't eat plants because they're a special species. There's got to be some of them out there, right?
Yeah.
Because you watch like what plants do, like with sounds, and like some plants can like.
Did they cross poll them with the Holocaust and the flat earthers?
Their temperatures rose on all three, probably.
I think there's a spectrum, right?
The birds. That's when it rose, was the birds.
Oh, the birds. Oh, okay.
Oh
yeah.
man, you put a bunch of plants in front of them and their genitals get
Yeah,
hotter.
they're
It's
like,
like,
oh,
wait a
yeah,
minute.
buddy. Give me that eggplant.
That's like
I knew that was coming. I wasn't even gonna make
Isn't
that.
there that show on Netflix where people are attracted to like different things? Like that
Oh,
lady
yeah.
really said
That's
she was attracted
weird.
to fences.
What?
Fences?
Fences?
Yeah. Oh, I will find it.
I have
That's a
heard
nice
that one.
6-foot fence you got there.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah,
Might I put a hole in it?
Just so they're rubbing herself on the fence.
she was.
Oh my god.
Well, I've seen so like I wonder how like
Her general temperature was through
Way
the
off.
through
roof.
the roof.
Yeah.
Well, if
Lava.
it wasn't like an electric fencer, then it really would be.
Ooh.
Jeez.
Or chain link fence. How
Only
do you
way
do
she
that?
gets
That
off
seems
anymore.
rough.
Turn that puppy up.
Dopamine max.
Put it on the pulsing.
What was the other show where the guy was eating glass?
But My Strange Addiction.
My Strange Addiction.
The
A
toilet
lot-
paper and like, drinking gasoline.
A
and
lot
stuff.
of that was bullshit.
That's
You
what I was
know,
wondering.
A lot of it was bullshit because that kid, I forget his name. I think his name was Josh. He was from Wayne County.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's the one that I was addicted to eating glass. And so he would do it as a sideshow. Like I had him over at the house one year back in my 20s when we had like a kegger and stuff. And he would literally
That's good
staple
times.
money to him and breathe fire and put a scorpion in his
That's
mouth,
like a David Blaine kind of guy.
eat bullets, eat glass, all that stuff. So he had no addiction. He was just doing it for show.
Right.
And so he obviously got on a show. He's like, no, I'm addicted to eat
He
the
has to
champagne
that.
glass. I have to have 2 a day. It's like, it's weird.
Yeah. Because I
But-
wondered because I've seen some of those where it's like the one lady like addicted to eating toilet paper or like drink or like huffing gas.
Yeah.
Like, man, I mean, I guess there are probably some people that are addicted to huffing gas.
They need to
Yeah.
go see you, Tony, because clearly their hormones are fucked up, right? Like,
Oh, I have no cures for these.
Yeah.
but don't you get
Deported.
not addicted, but like, don't you crave things? Like your body will start craving certain things if you're deficient in things.
I mean, like pica, like they talk about pregnant women that crave like
like ice and
Pica?
things.
That
Yeah.
they're
Copper
missing
or
certain nutrients, but I don't really know that anybody's like, hey, eat some glass. I don't think there's any nutrients in glass,
right,
or
or toilet paper.
probably not.
Yeah, I need more
Mm.
fiber in my diet. Like,
Yeah, I don't see the benefit. I can get like
Yeah.
the gas one because you're
you're
probably
getting high.
Yeah, you're probably getting high. So
Yeah.
that, there's an effect there.
Yeah,
But yeah, some of the, I don't. Well, the same thing is like watching like hoarders.
yeah,
Like, oh, I don't understand you. Like, I can get messy. Don't get me wrong. As a kid, my
Yeah.
room was a disaster. But
yeah.
hoarders is like a whole new
I think
level
that's
of.
Cause from like holding on to stuff. Like as far as holding on to something in life, and you have control over it, and you never had control before,
Mm.
and holding something.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
definitely layers there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the lady. She was and she's just physically attracted to a fence. She was on TLC.
Mm.
It was like
Was it a
weird.
certain type of fence? Chain link?
Yeah, was there
Barbed wire?
What was her style?
Yeah.
It's
Which
actually-
one got her
it's a-
going the
it's a-
most?
It's a cute country fence.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
see.
Oh.
There's she has a little video.
Oh, yeah, we don't. I don't think we have any sound right now. Oh, the
Oh, that's
woman
a good
physically attracted to I don't
I don't know
know.
if I can play it.
I'm gonna play this for Whitney.
Oh,
when I get home
addicted
and
to
be like,
eating her
Oh.
husband's ashes. I've seen that before.
I thought you were gonna say it.
God.
No, ashes. I mean, well,
This
hell,
fence
is
do
that why?
anything
Is that
for
a
you?
problem if I'm addicted to eating ass?
I was saying
Should I be
don't
worried?
don't
say
kink
ass or
shame.
ash?
Ashes. That was ashes.
It's not coming. I can't get it to
I heard
like,
that too. I was
actually
like,
work.
whoa.
Addicted to eating ass.
I don't have TikTok, so I can't pull it up. But
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
Oh.
I don't have
I
it. But
don't believe
I think
this
there's
is a
guys
cute little
on pro-
country fence.
How much
I
did she
don't-
get paid?
Yeah.
Probably a lot.
Again, everything's for sale for the right price, but
But they
Sure.
put it on TV. It was very strange.
well, yeah, they put Ancient Aliens on TV too.
Well, that's
R.I.P. That show's over, right? Like they're not making any
No,
more
I
of
think
this.
they're. I think
no,
they're
Fred still watches that
Same
shit
guy?
all the time.
same guy.
His
with
hair's
the,
like this
yeah, with
tall
the
now.
hairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're. I think they're still making them, or at least
Are
they
they?
had recently. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. It's a fun. A lot of the stuff is way
Yeah.
out there, but in general, like they're talking about things that do exist.
Mhm.
You know, like, and they just take the evidence of things that exist and really pontificate.
Exaggerate, yeah.
Yeah, they like to speculate, but there are
Sure.
things that out there that's kind of how I got into ancient. Like, really, I love like the thought of ancient civilization and our history as humans.
Yeah.
That's kind of what got me into it, because you realize like some of these things that are around, like the pyramids.
Mhm.
There's details about the pyramids they don't teach in school. I really struggle with that. My kid was there learning about ancient Egypt in school, and it's like, oh, it's 4,000 years old. And I was like, bullshit. Like,
Uh-huh.
there's not a chance in hell that those pyramids, the Great Pyramids, are only 4,000 years old.
Right.
Sorry, I don't believe it, not for a second.
Yeah.
But like, what were we? Because there's so much evidence now coming out that like things are, there was something weird going on back then that's completely different that we can't explain. So when we can't explain things, to me, like that's fun.
Let's dig in.
Let's go.
Yeah.
But the Ancient Alien show does they go a little above
Yeah.
and beyond, I think, sometimes.
And I know we mentioned Tesla at the beginning, but have you seen like the architecture of the old buildings out there, to where they
Oh,
have like
beautiful.
the orbs at the top
Mhm.
and like a lightning rod
Yeah.
and everything?
Yeah.
So I think there's some speculation out there that we were able to harness electricity into those orbs and power things with those.
I think so too. There's a great documentary on, I don't know if it's a documentary necessarily. It's kind of a documentary. It's the Tesla Files. It's
Yeah.
it's dramatized a little bit, but they
course.
just naturally, it's
Yeah.
TV, right? But it's
Yeah.
a super interesting show too. It's like a little mini series, but it's called the Tesla Files, and that's the one we're talking about with.
Okay.
Yeah, they talk about like digging back through some of like all his old files and stuff, and where he was working and how he died, and like his history, and like the different labs that he had, and like how he ended up in some of these labs, and how like he had a lab out in, I think, Colorado. Did a bunch of experiments there, but there's like this giant tower there that had this big ball on top, all these different crazy things that people were just kind of pushed off to the side. But I mean, he invented some massively breakthrough type technology for us.
Mhm.
And then, but that's like something that, like, you never hear about him at school. You know, we never like,
No.
I heard like most people, Tesla is just, Elon Musk and the
Yeah.
car company. But then you realize like, oh, Nikola Tesla he was a little funny of a guy, it seemed like, as an inventor, but most of them were like the geniuses of the time. And like
Mhm.
Albert Einstein was quoted as saying that Tesla's the smartest man alive.
Hmm.
Like that seems like a
Yeah.
pretty good recommendation to me.
Absolutely.
You know, and then like parts of his like files and stuff are missing, and funny enough, like it was the government that collected some of these things and like stored them, and then the one place they went, it was like a Tesla museum, and they're like, oh yeah, we have some of his trunks here, like we have some of his stuff, like it's stored away, and they're like, well, can we see it? They're like, oh no, absolutely not. They're like, well, what do you mean? They're like, well, we like, why can't we see them? Like, I thought this it's like it's like,
Yeah.
no, you can't see them. And they started asking him about the missing cases. They're like, well, it read that there's Tesla said he had 80 of these trunks.
Yeah.
And they only have like 50 some of them. Like, so where's the other like 20 trunks and 20
Yeah.
cases of all these like documents and stuff? And the guy just freaked out on him. He's like, that's not true. That's not this, that, whatever. And like, get out of here. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird behavior, right? Like when
Yeah.
people start getting all, so I don't know, there's a lot there, but I think there's something missing in
Yeah.
the story. It's like, and when there's things missing and government officials are involved, if you don't want a bunch of conspiracy theorists, stop making it so goddamn easy.
Make it easy.
Yeah, because you're making it really easy for all these people.
Let's go back to the moon. Well, here's the thing. We actually deleted all that technology and we lost it, so we can't go back. 60 years of advancement in technology, but
Yeah, we went from
we can't
not
figure
being
that
able
out
to
anymore.
fly to going to the moon in 30 or 60 years. And
Yeah. Not
No.
saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying like it's a little sketchy.
yeah, there's a lot of questions out there. I don't know.
Right. Right.
But asking the questions is fun.
Yeah,
At
absolutely.
least.
It'd be nice to have the right people to ask the questions too.
Yeah. But I don't
Yeah.
think we'd ever know who those people are, because it seems like I don't know, it always seems like there's somebody there that's the figurehead of knowledge,
hmm
but then you realize, I struggle with this as I get older and older. I saw a meme about the other day that really nailed it. It was like, look, as a kid, I knew I wasn't the smartest. I didn't grow up to be the smartest kid, basically. And I thought adults were really dumb then.
hmm
But like, it's really terrifying now growing up to realize that a lot of these adults are fucking dumb.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not that smart. So what's that say? Like, that's kind of scary. And then you realize some of these people are in positions of power.
Yeah.
And, whether they be your boss at work, or, a teacher or professor, a politician or the mayor, or whoever it might be, it's like you place like this position of power and knowledge or whatever it might be. It's like, oh, this person they got their shit
Right.
figured out. They must be doing well. And then you get to know them and it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, how did you get to where you're at? Because
Yeah.
this is curious.
I think when you're a kid, you look up to a lot of adults and be like, "Oh, I'll have my shit together then." Like
Yeah.
everything
One
is
day I'll get my
figured
shit
out.
together,
They
too.
have it all figured out. They have it all mapped out and stuff. And yeah, it's quite the opposite for a lot of times, And we all grow up to be like big kids a lot of times too. It's like you could be 50, 60 years old and you still have all these, downsides of being a kid with your emotions and control and all this, bullshit. So yeah, it's weird that we have all these people running the country and stuff, and I don't know. Seems fake to me a lot of times. Seems like a big show. So
And that's almost even more terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, I like to think that sometimes people are just dumb.
yeah,
And sometimes and there's really smart people out there that I can't understand because they're way too smart. But that means that there has to be, there's always a sliding scale
mhm,
for everybody. So it's like, all right, I would like to think that some of those people are they just don't have the capacity
Yeah.
and the capability of being that intelligent or whatever it might be. And it's not just maliciousness. But sometimes it's kind of hard to feel that way too. And
just
you see
controlled chaos, really. I
yeah,
think sometimes.
yeah, I'm okay with that. That sounds much more appealing. Honestly, I think
Yeah.
that's probably like, if I were voting for something or rooting for something, just
Mhm.
be controlled chaos. Because when you understand how smart some people are, and kind of go back to the Hitler thing, and then you add in maliciousness, like
Mhm.
malicious intent with intelligence,
Yeah.
that's where it gets scary. So it's
Right.
like, all right, is that where we're at? And these people are so smart and so malicious that they are playing this ruse on us all? Or is it just people just want money and power, and
Yeah.
it's just kind of controlled chaos? I'm hoping the latter, but
Yeah.
sometimes.
Maybe a little controlled chaos, but I think there is a trend line of like getting people to do and act a certain way, and changing behaviors, and seeing a progression of that. And I mean, the CIA and the government have been doing studies on
Yeah.
people for a long
Not
time.
anymore though.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
sure.
Yeah. And if you're saying that doesn't go on today,
Yeah.
I doubt that. So
Yeah. That's what cracks me up. It's like I got the kid a book where it's basically like a simplified version, and they break the stories down of like all these government conspiracies that were actually true. Like Project like Northwoods and
yeah.
the MK Ultra and all those different things, and they make it appropriate. But it's like there's giant, like it's a book of like, and it's I don't know, maybe 150 pages, something like that probably, and it's maybe like 4 to 5 pages about like each one.
Mhm.
It's just a giant book of like here's all the government
that's cool.
conspiracies that are true,
Wow.
like that are actually like these are
Proven.
documented,
Yeah.
like all these different things. It's like people like, but yet they continue to throw this whole conspiracy theory pejorative out
Yeah.
as soon as you disagree with, whoever you're not allowed disagreeing with.
Right.
It's like I get it. Like I got a Great Awakening map on my wall
Mhm.
with QAnon and all this because it's fun.
Yeah.
But like, how much truth is there to some of these things?
Sure.
Probably a thread somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's what's okay. There's a thread here. That's kind of
Yeah.
concerning.
I think we're all convinced in the timeline like this can't happen now. We're too far along. Technology's too good. We got checks and balances. There's a filter at the gate for everything.
Yeah.
That was Vietnam. That was years ago.
Mm.
We don't do that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Until 30 years from now, we're gonna look back at a lot of things like, see,
Yeah, we knew it.
yeah,
Yeah.
look at everything.
It's been fun though.
Yeah.
At least I think that's one thing why bringing it back to the beginning. I've kind of focused on and looking at like, all right, here we are. We're on this timeline. We have whatever is going on around us on the daily, all the things that we're told to be concerned about and worried about. What can I control? What can I do?
Mhm.
And I made a joke the one time walking in the gym, and the guy was whatever, he was calling me crazy or whatever. And I was like, no, I'm not a badass. I was like, I'm just a bitch and I know it. So I'm doing things to try to negate that.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to do hard things so I know I have some kind of agency over my mind and body, and I know that I can control myself.
Right.
That's really all I have control over, right? In this world is this. And one thing I can do is try to die a little slower every day.
Mhm.
That's really like it's all I can control.
Yeah.
So all these crazy things, it's nice to be aware of them and have an
Mhm.
understanding of what's going on, so that way I can at least adjust my life how I want to, and
Yeah.
with these understandings. But really, all we have control over is ourselves.
Yeah.
And in the same sense, no one's stopping you from doing anything. I think that's another fun thing that I like to think about with all this chaos is I can do anything I want.
Mhm.
No one's stopping us from doing something really good or something really bad to somebody. And there's laws, there's things, there's consequences, but outside of physical, like breaking the laws of physics as we know of at this point, no one's stopping you from doing anything. Like you're here and you choose your own destiny.
Yeah.
So like at the base of it, that's really what it is. Like we're out here and you're the one that's going to decide how your life goes.
Right.
Not the president, there's influences along the way, right? So we can try to make our capabilities of a good life as
Mhm.
great as we can. And for our kids too, because that's a concerning one. You brought that up. Like, what's the world going to look like in 30 years?
Yeah.
I'm sure our parents thought that too,
Yeah.
in a sense. So it's like, but what can I control?
But a parent, they can do the best they have to do. It's to worry about all those things is not productive as well.
Right.
So,
That's the whole point. You
yeah.
can only control what you can control.
Right.
Sometimes
Right.
it's nice being aware of it, but
Yeah.
That's at least helped me through life.
And it's funny we mention all this stuff when we talk about all these possible conspiracies. And it's like, what about all the stuff we don't know and we
Right.
haven't heard of
Yeah.
that goes on? So that trips me up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's always a wave, right? Because you look at like technology is a really easy one, but
Mhm.
I'm sure like Tony can experience it with like medicine, things that
Yeah.
he's aware of because
Right.
he's in that field that the normal person isn't aware of. But by the time it gets out and the cutting edge technologies and things occur, and they're in the hands of the normal person, and they're the understanding of the normal person. Well, that was developed 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
It's like our military. Naturally, the technology that they're developing now, all the money that's wrapped up in that. Well, of course, the military is going to have the highest grade technology that we won't even understand, right? Because that's where the money's at. They have the ability to do those things. The technology we have in our hands and that we see on a day-to-day basis, well, the military had it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Everything's on. So 20 years ago, what did they start developing? So that means they're not going to just stop now, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so what are we going to see in 20 years? Like,
yeah, I think about that with AI too. If it is it direct to the consumer, like once it comes out, direct to the consumer, I don't know. Or is there AI out there that's now 4 times as advanced as like ChatGPT and all these, controlling? I mean, I think it's going to get to a point, even it could happen this year for the election, that starts infiltrating like even social media to where there's far more bots, and all you can have to do is assign AI to those bots and really just sway the public opinion by the masses because of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all these things with just AI implementing it.
Because you shouldn't do your own research.
No,
for sure.
You're a mega.
Because you're definitely a conspiracy theorist if you're doing your own research for things.
That's bad.
Yeah. That's the scary part. The critical thinking capabilities of a dulled and distracted population is, I think, part of the scary part. I guess that's also kind of one reason why we do this too.
Yeah.
Talking to people, because not only concerns for the future, but seeing people in your own community doing things. We've talk about like Worcesterfest, doing those things, putting those things on, like getting involved in the community and seeing people do good things. You go, oh, well, hey, these things can be done. We can come together, and regardless of the ridiculous bullshit that's going on, whatever it might be.
Oh yeah.
That still comes down to the core of a small group of people in a small area are really the only way to impact your sphere.
Yeah.
And to do something about it.
Yeah.
It only extends from there.
Yeah. Yeah. The political climate, to look at it as like the country and everything, and I'm going to make a big difference. Probably not.
Right.
But you, yourself, and your community, and getting people together to, help other people out.
Yeah.
I think that's how we really, truly make a difference. So start there, at least.
Only way to, I suppose.
Yeah. We had like 2:30.
No.
2 hours, 30 minutes.
No, it's not too bad.
No.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah. Just kidding. Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, it goes fast.
It does
you
go
know
fast.
What? Well, I appreciate the exploration.
Yeah.
That you're doing with the health stuff. Naturally, I know last time you were on, we talked a little bit about kind of what you do around the community and different things too. But it's just refreshing to be able to sit down and talk to somebody for a period of time. I think that's a lost art because I'm terrible. I was talking about this the other day. I'm absolutely terrible at small talk.
Yeah.
Like I can't most people that meet me probably think I'm just an asshole. They wouldn't be far off probably because I can be. But it's one of those things where I like to talk about, are aliens interdimensional or are they among us or, are they fake completely? I don't know. But small talk is really difficult for me. So I enjoy that as well. Thank you. But seeing people kind of break the chains of whatever society, wants to try to mold people into, or not being afraid to disagree with, an ideology or a thought of somebody else, I think is really important. Whether it be, I saw something the other day that, talked about, we were growing up, particularly, I know this from our age, where we're taught not to talk about politics, not to talk about, all these certain things with
money, religion.
Yeah. Money, religion, politics. Like, don't talk about those things at work. Don't talk about those things with, your family and friends and whatnot, because those are touchy subjects. And I get it. There's obviously a time and a place for it. But if we don't have those controversial conversations with each other, there's no way we're ever going to understand how you think and how I think and how this person that completely disagrees with me thinks. And most of the time, if those two people kind of are able to sit down and really talk about it, they might disagree, but usually it's on like a 1 to 5% window of that certain thing. Most people can come to agreements with each other on most things because we're all just trying to do this whole life thing, right? But stepping out and taking initiative to do those things, I think is encouraging to other people. It's encouraging to me at least. And, at least you're not sitting back and just coasting through life because I've done that. And that's terrifying too. You let years go by and you go, what the hell am I doing? Like,
yeah, I think there's a side of ignorance is bliss. I don't have to worry about it. I just want to live my life and stuff like that. But I think there's a lot of growth potential with talking to people. And I think we just got to get back to a point where it's not so polarized. And listen, I can disagree with you and have a conversation, but we could still be friends.
Yeah.
Or we could still at least be, normal and not enemies at least. And I think we've kind of lost that a little bit with everything. It's like, oh, you like Trump? I'm not saying I like Trump, but I don't like you anymore because you're a fascist. And if you're a Trump apologist or something, it's like, it's not like that, dude. So, it's a tough new world, our brave new world out there. And I think the more that people can sit down with each other and just have a conversation instead of getting online and being these keyboard warriors, because there's no empathy a lot of times with that. There's only just hatred in a difference in opinions. So, I appreciate you guys for at least having this and putting this on. I think it's a great platform, and hope you keep doing it.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, man.
Definitely.
Good talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
Next time. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, check out the website, chronic-curiosity.com, to join us at the forum, have some fun, interaction, pick you up a comfy t-shirt, or if you just want to support the show and donate, all that is on the website as well. Thank you. Until next time. See you.